Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios today on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We are live out here at Pinewood Social, where we're here with our friends at Guinness as we are watching Tennessee get their rear ends kicked in the SEC men's basketball tournament. And again, we have a pair of tickets that we are giving away today. A pair of tickets to the SEC men's basketball tournament. That's right. You could be going to the SEC men's basketball tournament. You got to stop by, come on out, hang out here at Pinewood, and go ahead and register to win in the box. And then you got to be here. We'll be giving away those tickets in the 5 o'clock hour today. And what's great about hanging out here for the patio party at Pinewood is they've got free parking. So you park in the garage, they'll validate it for you. And we've got all the games on the jumbo LED screens that are sitting out here. Plus, they've got lawn games. And most importantly for me, and I will be probably taking this today, they have a shuttle, a bus to and from Bridgestone Arena if you are headed to the SEC basketball tournament. So good luck on all of that. And again, Pinewood Social has a 6-lane modern retro bowling alley offering a fun, nostalgic experience that's perfect for groups of any size. You can go to pinewoodsocial.com, and again, we're here thanks to our friends at Guinness. So we got a lot of wild stuff going on in the NFL. In fact, Josina Anderson's reporting that the Pittsburgh Steelers are trading Kenny Pickett to the Philadelphia Eagles in what will be like a pick swap. So they're giving away Kenny Pickett for free. So that's a major move. I cannot believe that Arthur Smith is going to roll with Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback. Also, how about the fact that I got all worked up about Mason Rudolph? Everybody's out there trying to defend Mason Rudolph. It's like the boo-hoo Mason Rudolph crew out there. And now the Steelers not only didn't want him, they didn't want the other guy either. I mean, they just got rid of both of them, which tells me that those guys suck. But that's a different discussion for a different day. What I want to start off with is something that happened last night. Ian, did you see this move from the L.A. Chargers?
Must have been a cat move.
Yeah. So I've seen all these moves that are going down when it comes to, and like the Pickett move's a good example of this, right? Like Kenny Pickett gets traded in the middle of the day to the Eagles, and it's like, whoa. What just happened here? Kenny Pickett's getting traded? That's what happened last night when the L.A. Chargers announced that they were moving Keenan Allen to the Chicago Bears for a 4th-round pick. Now, we can get into the cap stuff all you want. If it was a cap move, it would have happened before the new league year. So I think, quite frankly, they just didn't want to pay the money. I think that they're saving up to probably spend more money on another trade, or Harbaugh's trying to rebuild on the fly. I can't tell you what his motive is, but I will tell you this. They gave away their hand yesterday. They gave away their hand by trading Keenan Allen because they have no receivers on their team. They drafted Quentin Johnston in the 1st round last year. He sucks. They've got Josh Palmer. He's okay. But I don't think anybody would confuse Josh Palmer with the number 1 receiver in the NFL. They're going receiver in the draft. It looks like right now it's going to be quarterback. Everybody assumes Marvin Harrison at 4, though there has been, some discussion that Arizona is looking to trade out at 4. And who knows if that's a smokescreen or not. There's been some talk that J.J. McCarthy might go at 4. Who knows, again, if that's real. And it's draft season. We don't know who's telling the truth, who's lying. We never know. But again, if it goes quarterback, and we know Marvin Harrison Jr. is the top receiver on the board, and he goes off the board, that means that the Chargers have to go receiver with either Odunze or Neighbors, and most importantly, it means they're not drafting Joe Alt. So quarterback, 4, wide receiver at 5, and then the Giants are at 6, and the Giants have a left tackle in Andrew Thomas. And I don't know if they'd be interested in taking Alt and moving him to the right side where he didn't play in college. But they also have a highly drafted right tackle in Evan Neal. Now, Evan Neal's kind of sucked, I guess. But what I'm getting at here is that the big fear when it came to the Titans and Joe Alt was that the Chargers at 5 would be the team that takes him. And so then you're stuck in a situation where, well, Malik Neighbors is there, or Olu Fashio's there, or Roma Dunze is there. And if Alt goes at 5, you would be in a situation at 7 where it's either one of the wide receivers and the one other left tackle, and you'd have to pick, or it was going to be Alt versus the other guys. But if Alt went at 5, you were in trouble because, look, Olu Fashio's got his knocks, especially those little baby hands that he's got. And so I had a little anxiety, as I'm sure some of you did, knowing that there's no left tackle on the free agent market. At this point, there's not even a bum left tackle that's really out there on the free agent market. Jonah Williams, he's not even very good, and he's already signed. And you can't run Dillard back out there, even though for some reason he's on the roster. I have no idea. Don't ask. I didn't do it. But they don't have a left tackle. They don't have a right tackle. I just assumed that they would have to go left tackle at 7. But the guy that I really, really, really wanted is Joe Alt. And I just heard at the Super Bowl that the Chargers were Joe Alt, Joe Alt, Joe Alt, Joe Alt. And I was maybe a little resigned to the idea that the Chargers were going to take him and slide him over to the right side, or take him and move Rashawn Slater, or do something. But last night, when that trade came down the pipe and Keenan Allen got shipped off for a draft choice, I said they're taking a receiver. So now it is very likely that it will be quarterback, Marvin Harrison Jr. or J.J. McCarthy at 4, wide receiver at 5. The Giants at 6, again, don't need a left tackle. They have one. You at 7. You can get Joe Alt. And that solves a problem. I hate the idea of going into an NFL draft and saying we have to have this position. I hate that idea. I think that's what stupid teams do. But unfortunately, because you were stupid last year and you drafted a guard in the first round and you signed a left tackle who freaking sucks, and you had an offensive line coach who'd never coached in the NFL before, and so nobody developed into a left tackle, because of all of those things, you are stuck with having to draft the best left tackle that you can get in the first round. Now, there are numerous left tackles that will all be available in the first round. But regardless, Joe Alt's the best of the group. He's the most pro-ready. He's the most sure thing. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism from his combine testing. Unlike Mims, unlike Fashanu, he didn't get hurt. And so I'm just telling you right now, yesterday was a very, very good day for the Tennessee Titans. Because as much as I fear that the Titans will put themselves into a corner where they have to draft a left tackle, which they've already put themselves in that corner, as much as I fear that the Titans are going to miss out on some great player, right? Aaron Donald just retired, and he was picked in the middle of the first round in a loaded draft, and I don't know how some of these other teams felt and how their board stacked and everything. But it wouldn't surprise me if one of these teams that picked somebody else was like, oh, we loved Donald, but we had to take a corner because we didn't have a corner. And so I hate being put into that spot where we could look at the board and see a player that might be better than Joe Alt, who might be a Hall of Fame caliber player, and you still have to take a left tackle because ultimately you don't know if anybody's a Hall of Fame caliber player or not, and you know he's a left tackle. But what I really hate is the idea of Joe Alt going off the board before you pick at 7, and then you sitting there and having to take Fashanu or Mims or one of these other left tackles, especially if you can't trade out, and you have to take one of those guys at 7 if they're the 13th or 15th best player on the board. And so yesterday when that news came down that Keenan Allen is headed to the Bears, which I'm not exactly sure why the Bears are doing this, but sure, it can't hurt. Keenan Allen headed to the Bears. I said, they have to go wide receiver. And there was all this talk, too, that Harbaugh might want to trade out to get more picks. I don't know if Harbaugh can do that. They don't have any wide receivers. So what are you going to do? So now the fear is, could somebody hop the Titans? Could, the fourth pick, could that be left tackle? But word on the street is Arizona has decided they signed Jonah Williams in free agency. He's probably going to play right tackle. Word on the street is they're moving Paris Johnson Jr., who they took in the first round last year in the top 10. They're moving him to left tackle. So they don't need a left tackle. So it is right now, it is looking good that Joe Alt will be there, that when you're on the clock, when that clock starts, Ian, is it still 15 minutes in the first round, or is it now 10 minutes in the first round?
I feel like it's 10.
I think it's 10 too, but I feel like part of me thinks that it's 15 in the first and 10 in the second, but I could be wrong about that. Whatever. When that clock starts, if Joe Alt's on that board, you run that card right in there.
Yeah, it's 10 minutes.
Don't even think twice. 10 minutes.
10. Yep.
At 9:59 or at 9:59 on that clock, I want an ESPN, the bottom left-hand corner, I want it to say the pick is in. And I think you're going to be able to get the guy. And I think it's going to be Alt. And I think he's going to be there. And so last night, the Keenan Allen trade, good news for the Titans. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in on the show. And again, we still got free agency and there's some prospects, as prospective signings the Titans could be looking at, which we'll be getting into. Tennessee just got their rear end spanked by Mississippi State. I'm going to tell you this right now on the Tennessee front. We'll touch on it. Tennessee losing in March in the SEC tournament. I'm not going to spend all day crapping on Rick Barnes today. As much fun as that would be, I'd rather talk football, and I feel like the audience rather hear football too. But we will cover that as well. 615-737-1025. Speaking of draft and trades, there was a draft trade today that, again, I'm starting to circle and think could possibly involve the Titans. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, live again from Pinewood Social on behalf of our friends at Guinness. It's a Fireball Hot Take Friday at 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
little bit of sneaky news that may fly under the radar today. The Vikings acquired the 23rd overall draft pick from the Houston Texans. So now in the draft for the first round, they have the 11th overall pick and the 23rd overall pick. A lot of people speculating that they did this so that they can package those picks and move up into the top 5 of the draft to get a quarterback of the future.
Not often this far out do you see just like draft pick trades.
Yeah. No.
Normally like draft day, draft night, there's like, we'll give you this, you give us this in return, and it's like not even worthy of chatting about. This one is obviously worthy because the bundle situation that Tone was talking about, 11 and 23 are worth a lot of points. That's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
Now, is that real in negotiations and when you're trying to trade these things? Possibly. But 11, 23, and you think you put in there maybe a next year or something, you could probably get up into the top 3, top 4 if you really wanted to. Not saying that's what they're doing. We're just saying if they're trying to acquire valuable picks to make a move, it's like KOC's going as Iowa Young guy.
For sure.
There you go. That was the story that came out today, which was Minnesota early this morning made that trade with Houston, where Houston gave them Cleveland's first-round draft choice. Remember, Houston has Cleveland's first-round choice from the Deshaun Watson trade. They don't have their own choice. They gave that up in order to move up to number 3 last year and take Will Anderson. So Houston gave Minnesota Cleveland's first-round draft choice. So now Minnesota has 2 first-round draft choices. And so there is a lot of talk about Minnesota moving up to get a quarterback. Now, we subscribe on this program to the duck theory. If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, Ian, chances are
It's a duck.
it's a duck. So it looks like Minnesota, who, again, Kirk Cousins was willing to go back there. They just weren't willing to do things that he didn't feel like were year to year. And so because of that, clearly Minnesota's been thinking quarterback. The GM came out and had a blunder when he got the job, and he was like, well, we don't have a Mahomes or a Brady at quarterback, and you need one of those guys to win the Super Bowl. So clearly he's looking for his Mahomes or his Brady. The guy comes from San Francisco, where they traded, I believe, from 12 to get to 3, and it was 3 first-round draft choices, which was a horrendous trade. And we all know that, but a horrendous trade by Shanahan. But that's where he comes from. And we know that there are 3 quarterbacks, 4 if you're a J.J. McCarthy believer, which I'm not, but 4 if you believe in McCarthy, and it will cost a fortune in order to get one of those guys. And so I was thinking about the move today because as soon as they made the move, everybody started talking. You heard McAfee right there say, I bet Kevin O'Connell, KOC, I bet he's got a guy he likes. KOC, he's seen somebody. It's going to cost you more than 11. And what was the pick that they got from Houston? 22?
23 or something like that.
Somewhere in there. It's going to take a lot more than that to get up to 3 or 4 in order to take Drake May. I mean, again, the going rate for Trey Lance from 12 was 3 first-round draft choices, which is a little ridiculous. But, again, that's the market. So I was wondering this morning when that got made, could this be in order to get McCarthy? Because I've told you, if you want me to move off of Joe Alt with that 7th pick, if you want me to move off of Joe Alt, if I have a chance of getting Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu or whomever to move to 11, and remember the Jets pick at 10 and the Jets need a left tackle. If you're doing that, you have to give me 2 first-round draft choices. They have 2 first-round draft choices. And it would be hard thinking about all the needs the Titans have right now, and they'll fill some more of these in free agency, but it would be hard for me to turn down in a very high first-round draft choice tackle draft. It'd be very hard for me to turn that down. The 2nd first-round pick, knowing that I could get a defensive player where the Titans need more players on defense right now, or I could get my left tackle at 11, albeit it's not going to be Alt, but it could be Fashanu, it could be Mims, it could be one of those guys, and I might also be able to get my right tackle if I end up making that trade with Minnesota. But right now, Minnesota, the only firepower Minnesota would have, I think, to get to 3 would be the 2 first-round choices and next year's first-round choice. I don't think that they would deal Justin Jefferson, who I think that, would be at least a part of it. But, Minnesota's on the move. We all know that. But I don't think that this is about those top 3. I think this is about McCarthy. I think they like J.J. McCarthy. And I think they've decided we're going to strike on this first-round draft choice today so that we can get closer. And I'm reminded of a trade in the 2018 draft. Before you guys crap on J.J. McCarthy or the 7th pick or whatever, the Buffalo Bills had an all-pro left tackle by the name of Cordy Glenn. And the Buffalo Bills, who had made the playoffs in Sean McDermott's first year with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, they traded their left tackle, Cordy Glenn, to the Bengals before the draft, I think right around this time, free agency, in order to move up in the draft. And so the Bengals, swapped from 13 or whatever it was to 20-something, and they get a left tackle out of it. And then on draft night, the Bills traded up again to get to 7, and they drafted Josh Allen. And that was the master plan that they apparently had for a year, was to figure out how to get up to get the quarterback, and they had studied all the quarterbacks to get the quarterback that they wanted. And that quarterback had to be there, and it was Allen, but he was. And I think Minnesota is doing something similar, and 7. And remember, Rand and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the general manager in Minnesota, worked together in San Francisco. But I could see Minnesota preparing a move, if our guy's there, to move up to 7. Because, again, 1 first-round draft choice or 1 extra first-round draft choice is not enough to move you off the 3rd pick. So they'd have to get more if they were going to do that for one of the top quarterbacks, I think, in this draft. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. I see all your phones. We'll get to them. 615-737-1025. Again, we are live today out at Pinewood Social with our friends at Guinness, and we are giving away a pair of SEC men's basketball championship tickets. Now, I think this is the whole strip for the whole Megillah, like the whole weekend. Hey, is that right, Lance? Is this for the whole weekend, the tickets, the SEC tickets? Okay, so just the 12 o'clock tomorrow game. So you got to be here at 3 o'clock. Again, I think there's 1 session tomorrow and 1 session on Sunday. So it's the session for tomorrow. But you got to be here at Pinewood Social, register to win, and we're going to give them away in the 5 o'clock hour today. And that is a pair of tickets to tomorrow, the 2 games in the SEC semifinals. We're giving those away. And again, right here at Pinewood Social, they got free parking, and they got shuttle buses to Bridgestone Arena for the games. And I think I will be taking part in that. 615-737-1025. Let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app, and it should be yours too. FanDuel is putting the ball in your court for the rest of the NBA season because right now, new customers get $200. That's right. $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Bet on the NBA with a wide range of bet types, including quick bets, live same-game parlays, player props, and more. That you can pick one individual player and roll with that player prop. So visit FanDuel.com/JGM and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Basketball Association. 21 and over in present Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issue is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt. Those two guys, either one of those, I am super happy with. Okay. I think both of those guys will be 10, 12-year, all-pro level left tackles in the NFL. Everybody else, there's a compromise if you're going to play them at left tackle instead of at right tackle. That's the point that I'm making.
There you go. That was Trevor on our show talking about the two left tackles. And again, the two trades that affect the Titans and that 7th pick. One, the Chargers at 5, getting rid of every receiver they have, thus having to take a receiver. That's the first thing. The second thing is Minnesota acquired Houston's first-round draft choice this morning. Could they be moving up for a quarterback? Could 7 be the possibility? Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. One texter says, Indy Ben says the Chargers could still draft Joe Alt and get a wide receiver at the top of round 2. Those early second-round wide receivers would go in round 1 in most drafts. So I go back to the 2020 draft, which was supposed to be like the wide receiver draft. Now, I know Jerry Jeudy has not panned out, and I know that Henry Ruggs is in jail. But, that's the draft that had Justin Jefferson in the first round. The second-round wide receivers, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, they're good. They're not Justin Jefferson. You're the Chargers. You have a franchise quarterback. You play in Los Angeles, so the only way you get any attention is by winning and winning at a high level. You're going to put your franchise quarterback in a position where the only receiver he has is a round 2 guy. He's already got a left tackle. It's a Pro Bowl left tackle. It's a left tackle who's been in the league for 3 years. Why would you take another left tackle? Or why would you take a left tackle to put him at right tackle? That doesn't make any sense to me. You can get your right tackle, I would assume, and I don't even know who their right tackle is, but you can go out and you could trade back and get your right tackle, but would you do that over receiver? Because I think the way it is right now in the NFL, the premium, and we've seen how running backs have kind of gone down and inside linebackers and safeties now are starting to go down. Wide receiver is the second most valuable thing. And they don't have any of them. The Chargers, in my opinion, the Chargers are going to take a receiver at 5, and it's over. It's either going to be Neighbors or a Dunze if Marvin Harrison isn't there. And if it is Marvin Harrison, he will be that pick. One texter says Alt at 7, then a corner at 38. Putting Alt next to Skoronski would be run left 2.0, just like Lawan and Roger Saffold. Well, it would take some time. I mean, I caution everybody, and I know they say that Joe Alt's ready to play right now. I caution everybody on expecting Joe Alt to be a Hall of Fame player the day he shows up. And I know all the talk is that Joe Alt is ready to go right now. There's a difference between ready to play in an NFL game right now and ready to dominate in the NFL. I think he's ready to play in an NFL game. I don't think he's ready to dominate. And again, I've talked about this so many times. And I bring this up constantly. And I know that, I'm sure people are probably worn out of hearing about this because nobody cares about practice. But every collective bargaining agreement, each side has to give something up, right? And the owners are always trying to get more. 17 games, more international games, more playoff teams, more Thursday night football, more Saturday football, more. They're trying always to get more and more and more. And so they always have to give the player something in exchange. And what that always ends up being is off-season and practice time because they don't make any money off of practice. So they give that away. The coaches are furious about it. When they had that lockout in 2011, the coaches and GMs were furious. And guess what? The owners didn't care. So now you can't wear pads in the offseason. You can't hit in the offseason. You can only have so much time out on the field. So you can go over technique, but you can't really, you can't play offensive line. So if you think Joe Alt's going to show up and all of a sudden be the Joe Alt that he's going to be long term, that's just not how it's going to work. Because it's going to take him a while, to get used to the popping and everything else of the NFL. So let's not just immediately say, and look, I'm optimistic. With old man Bill Callahan in there, I am optimistic that Skoronski will be what everybody said he was supposed to be, but Skoronski was not that last year. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Wes in Clarksville says, I'm going to laugh if the Titans roll with Andre Dillard again at left tackle. If not, why have they not cut him? So with Andre Dillard, the important thing to look for is Monday. I think it was Sam Phelan, A to Z Sports, looked at Spot Track. And on Spot Track, they said that he had a bonus due of $3 million, a roster bonus, on Wednesday of this past week. But apparently that was bad info. The roster bonus is due Monday. I cannot imagine that the Titans are going to pay Andre Dillard a $3 million roster bonus on Monday. I cannot imagine that happening. And if it did happen, I will go crazy on Monday. You know, I usually wake up first thing in the morning, and I just immediately, I'm like, okay, what are we going to talk about today on the show? And then there's, okay, let's find, somebody said this, let's go cut that. Or I'll be researching stuff or watching tape or whatever it may be, making phone calls to try to get clarification. Why did this guy do this? What's this rule over here? And I mean, it's like an all-day thing. This week has actually been rather refreshing because with all of the constant moves and, I mean, Ian, we haven't had a grid this entire week until today. And even today, I'm sad that we have one because after I sent it to you, the Vols got their tushes kicked in the SEC tournament. Mike Vrabel got hired by the Cleveland Browns. I'm like, oh, God, it's just constantly moving here and there and everything else. And so on Monday, we'll probably have a show planned out like we normally do. But if we get to 3 o'clock and Andre Dillard's on this team and Andre Dillard gets his $3 million bonus, we're going to have problems, okay? We're going to have real problems. And to me, the one thing I'll say about Dillard, if he's still on the team on Monday and they end up paying him the bonus, which means it'll be on the team next year, if that happens, then Andre Dillard is no longer a Mike Vrabel problem. It's a Rand Carthon problem. Because Andre Dillard's one of the worst offensive linemen I've ever seen, and he has no heart. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's like when Chris Sanders says, I say this respectfully, and then craps on somebody. I don't mean he has no heart in that he's selfish. But he's got no heart out there. He's just there. And you can't be what the Titans say they want to be about with a guy who's a 10-man. And that's what he is. So he's got to go. And I expect him to be gone on Monday, and if he's not gone on Monday, we're going to have problems. And it's going to be loud. One texter says, I still believe that the Chargers go with Joe Alt at 5. Harbaugh is going to have a tough-nosed team, and they can certainly get a receiver later in the draft. When you say they can get a receiver later in the draft, that kind of talk pisses me off. And here's why. Because I agree. You can get a receiver later in the NFL draft. You cannot get Rome Odunze later in the NFL draft. You cannot get Malik Neighbors, and I like Malik Neighbors. I think Malik Neighbors is better than Marvin Harrison Jr., and you can't get him later in the NFL draft. So it's easy to look at the Chargers and say, oh, there's tons of receivers. Let's just get a receiver later. But the receiver you're getting is not Malik Neighbors. It's not Rome Odunze. That's like saying, I get a quarterback later in the draft. Well, it ain't going to be Caleb Williams. So when you guys are, the Chargers, they'll just do this. I'd be a little careful. Boy, a lot of you guys are asking about Andre Dillard before you even talked about Andre Dillard. Mitch in Bellevue, is there a deadline for the Titans to get rid of Dillard? Again, I think it's Monday. And if he's on this team on Monday, Titan fans are going to be real mad, led by me. You thought I was mad over Mason Rudolph, which I was, by the way, and I still am. And I can't get all you people that are defending Mason Rudolph. He stinks. But that's a different discussion for a different day. But you thought I was crazy about the Mason Rudolph thing? Woo. I just say this. You think that's you see what will happen on Monday if Andre Dillard's still on this football team. 615-737-1025. More of your phone, 615-737-1025. And there was one question Calvin Ridley got asked today. And he answered it well-ish. And then he couldn't hold back from the truth. We'll get to that coming up next here on Stillman and Company. Again, we are live at Pinewood Social. We're giving away SEC men's basketball tickets for tomorrow's session. You got to be present to win. Come on out to Pinewood Social as we're here with our friends from Guinness. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I absolutely love Hiller. They have taken fantastic care of my home over the years, and I promise you they'll do the exact same for you. This month is Happy's Golden Ticket Sweepstakes at Hiller. Enter to win at hillergoldenticket.com. All you have to do is enter your email and you're automatically entered to win. Prizes include a $5,000 Hiller gift card, a $1,000 Hiller gift card, and one of 10 Happy Hiller Club memberships. Or take advantage of zero-interest financing for 12 months on select new HVAC systems, tankless water heaters, and whole home generators. Do not miss out. Enter to win now. That's hillergoldenticket.com.
So this is what I'm talking about. All due respect to Greg Bedard, who was coming in here and told us earlier that the Patriots have a very aggressive offer on the table for Calvin Ridley. The very aggressive offer on the table for Calvin Ridley, but his reasons for returning to the Jaguars are personal, like family reason or something like this. So Calvin Ridley then responds by going to Tennessee.
It's kind of close to Florida.
Closer.
Yeah, I guess.
So's Cuba.
They don't have a quarterback either. Tennessee.
They kind of suck too.
Well, they just signed Mason Rudolph. So
and they have no quarterback.
Yeah.
So riddle me this. How do they get the player?
Money. They also signed Tony Pollard.
Oh, I'd so much rather be the Tennessee Titans. I feel like there's just more to look at there.
There you go. Those were the folks in Boston, Felger and Maz, when the Titans signed Calvin Ridley. And I love it where it's like, well, he was debating between New England and Jacksonville. And Jacksonville, well, there were some personal reasons there for Ridley to, and then he ends up in Tennessee. And it's like, how'd you get him? And so today, Calvin Ridley held his press conference, and I listened to it. And I got to tell you, I liked a lot of what I heard out of Calvin Ridley. Because it was, A, he was very confident, which I liked. But 2, no bull crap. I mean, even this, he was asked why he picked the Titans. First of all, we all know why he picked the Titans, right? The money. That's why he picked the Titans. This is a 2-year, $50 million contract. Everything else, it's semantics after that. But the real money is 2 years and $50 million, and that's why he picked the Titans. And I would pick the Titans for $50 million too. But here's what he said when he was asked about it.
Why come here? It's a new start. When I was going, through the process of, trying to evaluate the teams that I could possibly be with, I know that I have a certain type of skills, and so I'm not, scared to go with the good or with, who's trying to be good. So I think, playing them twice a year, I was watching them and looking at, the things they did have. I know that D-Hop's here. And I know that, I want to play with another receiver on the other side that can, help me, do what I do best too. So I knew that they had that, and I knew they had a really good defense, and, they were upcoming and stuff. So I was looking into it, and, I really wanted to honestly be with the Jags. But, there was a lot of things that I wasn't working out for me. And then I think the Titans had that other side for me. So I chose the Titans. And obviously the money was pretty good. So I went with that.
He told you why. First off, he's asked, why choose the Titans? And then he gives you all these other reasons and then finally goes, and the money was good. And I love, too, that I wanted to go back to Jacksonville, but there were just some things there that didn't work out. Ian, what do you think those things there that didn't work out were?
Contract details.
The money. That's it. And it's okay to get players who just want to be here for the money. What it is not okay is if you sign somebody who is only here for the money, and once they get the money, they don't care anymore. There are a lot of players in the NFL that do not care what team they're on, do not care what city they play in, do not care what their team's record is, do not care if it's a contender or a pretender. They don't care. They play for the Beirut Biscuits if you offered them enough money. And some of those guys are really good. I covered a guy, Darrelle Revis, one time. And I remember when Darrelle Revis signed with the Patriots. And it was basically like, look, all these other guys are going to take these discounts to play with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and not Darrelle Revis. Because Darrelle Revis doesn't care. Darrelle Revis wants his money, and then they signed Darrelle Revis, and Darrelle Revis went out there, and he played like a superstar. They won the Super Bowl. They wanted to cut his pay. He said no. They released him. He went back to the Jets, the end. He didn't care. Didn't care. And Ridley, Ridley's press conference, it seems like he's probably going to be a good team guy. Seems like he's really thought about, what happened for those 2 years in Atlanta and the gambling and the trade and everything else. And he didn't shy away from it, though. It was funny, the little gambling kind of bit that he did in that. But I just tell you, he's here for the money. And that's good. But now he's got to play up to the money. One texter says, and it is official, by the way, the Titans have agreed to terms with Mason Rudolph. as their backup quarterback. What a freaking joke. And I don't know what's a bigger joke, by the way, than the Titans signing Mason Rudolph or the amount of people that have defended it with, well, I mean, he's just the backup quarterback. Right. And in today's era of the NFL where you're not allowed to practice, so your offensive line doesn't get any better, in today's NFL era, these offensive lines across the league are so bad. You just happen to have the worst one. But these offensive lines across the league are so bad that all these quarterbacks are getting hurt. And your quarterback gets hurt all the time. So in years past, you could tell me, well, it's okay to have Logan Woodside as the backup because if Tannehill gets hurt and he never gets hurt, then, we're screwed anyways. That was kind of the mantra. But I'm not giving up on the season if Will Levis gets popped a bunch because half the teams in the league have to play with backup quarterbacks. So to go out and get this Scarbini, I mean, it's ridiculous. One texter says, is there a chance they retain Tannehill and make him the backup and make Mason Rudolph the third-string quarterback? Nope. Mason Rudolph's money is guaranteed. Mason Rudolph was a go-cheap option at the quarterback position, and they took it. And look, I'm not going to call the Titans cheap because the Titans aren't cheap. They just spent $50 million on a receiver. But you got to do better at backup quarterback. One texter says, is there a chance we get another quarterback and end the Malik Willis experiment? I don't know if they'll get another quarterback, and I don't know if they'll end the Malik Willis experiment, but Malik Willis is not going to be the quarterback of this team. Like, it's just not, he's not going to be the quarterback. I think the die is already cast. And so when it comes to like, hey, what about Malik? Could Malik beat out Mason Rudolph? No. Mason Rudolph is the backup quarterback. Just like how I can tell you right now, Will Levis is the starting quarterback. Calvin Ridley is a starting receiver. DeAndre Hopkins is a starting receiver. Peter Skoronski is the starting left guard. I can tell you Mason Rudolph is the backup quarterback. And I hate it. I hate it because I understand if you're paying your quarterback $55 million, that you have to get some bum to come in there and back it up. I get it. Because the drop-off from Mahomes to Joe Flacco is basically the same as Mahomes to anybody. You're screwed. But you don't have Mahomes. Like, you do not have Mahomes. You've got nobody. Levis, we'll see. We don't even know if he's any good. And they put nobody behind him? I hate it. They put a nobody who the Steelers couldn't wait to get rid of. Every opportunity they've had to dump on Mason Rudolph, they have. Benched him for Duck Hodges. Signed Mitch Trubisky to play over him. It's just, yeah, he won a couple of games at the end of last year. He beat the Bengals against Jake Browning. He beat the Ravens when they didn't play anybody. And they won a game at Seattle. I don't know how. I tried to watch it on NFL Plus this morning. And NFL Plus, for all the money the NFL makes, NFL Plus is the single crappiest app I have ever used. It is the crappiest thing I have ever had that is associated with the NFL. And if you have an NFL Plus app, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I could not watch that Steelers-Seahawks game on my Fire Stick. It just kept shutting off. Like right when they went to kick it off, it shut off. I reboot it. I do it again. It doesn't work. I tried it on my phone, and it just kept refreshing. It, didn't actually play the game. I don't understand. Baseball and basketball and all these others, ESPN Plus, they don't make as much money as the NFL, and the NFL has to have the crappiest app. So I couldn't tell you how they won that Seahawks game. I have no idea. Maybe he was Joe Montana, but I can't tell you. I can't watch it. But he sucks. And until he proves otherwise, I am of just the complete and total belief that he is terrible. Oh, we got some breaking news, huh? Okay.
There we go.
Do we have a breaking news sounder, Ian? It doesn't matter. Breaking news. Thank you. Breaking news, according to Ian Rappaport, the Tennessee Titans have released offensive tackle Andre Dillard. So Andre Dillard, who is I said this. I said if we got to Monday and he was on this football team, we were going to have problems. So the Titans have finally released Andre Dillard. And I have a serious question to ask, which is, what did you accomplish by keeping him on the roster until today? Like, did you do him a disservice because he could have signed with somebody else and you didn't want him to sign with somebody else? Are you worried about somebody else getting Andre Dillard? Wouldn't the right thing have been to have released Andre Dillard like 2 weeks ago? But that's their business. He stinks. He's gone. And we will remember Andre Dillard in our hearts as the guy that whenever somebody is truly terrible, like an unforgivable, disastrous decision, we'll compare it to Andre Dillard. I would say that I have fond memories of the Andre Dillard era, but I do not. 615-737-1025 is our phone number on the program. We'll get back into your phones. We'll continue on this, and I do think that we need to have we need to reflect back on the Andre Dillard era here on the program. 615-737-1025. Let's talk about Window Nation. That's right. I love Window Nation. Hey, March is a critical time to check your home's windows and call the pros at Window Nation. You know, I had the pros at Window Nation out to my home for that free in-home estimate. I asked them if I needed any windows replaced. They looked at my windows. They tested my windows. They said, no, your windows are good. But if you've got cracked windows or you've got windows that won't open or you've got windows that won't close, which that's a huge problem. But if you've got, you know what I'm talking about. I've had them in homes I've owned before. You need to talk to Window Nation today. And replacing those windows, more affordable than you think. Because right now, every 2 windows you buy, you'll get 2 windows free. Plus, 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. Again, every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 windows for free. 0 down, 0 interest, and 0 payments for 24 months. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com. Again, that's 866-90NATION, windownation.com. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios today. We are at Pinewood Social downtown. Again, we are hanging out here for Pinewood Madness. That's 33 Peabody Street for Patio SEC Watch Party presented by Guinness. And, of course, we are giving away SEC tournament tickets for tomorrow. Come on out, register to win. You got to be here to win them, and we'll give them away in the 5 o'clock hour. You heard it there at the end of the last segment and in Ian's update. The Tennessee Titans have finally, mercifully, released Andre Dillard, one of the worst free agent signings probably in the history of the NFL. And I was doing the numbers during the break. Andre Dillard, according to Pro Football Focus, allowed 41 pressures on 331 pass snaps. That is 12.5% of every pass snap Andre Dillard allowed a pressure. And that includes like bubble screens, right, where there's no way that you could even give that up. He allowed a sack on 4% of the pass snaps that he played in. Meanwhile, Trent Williams, this is the difference between great and Andre Dillard, 0 sacks on 438 pass blocking snaps. Unbelievable. And the one thing I'll say before we get to your phones on this at 615-737-1025, and this is not it is. I was going to say this is not a knock on Rand Carthon, but it kind of is. The Boohoo Rand crew will get upset about this. But the fact that we, as we waited and waited and waited and waited for them to release Andre Dillard, the fact that we questioned amongst ourselves, and I certainly had it in the back of my head that there was a possibility that they might actually keep Andre Dillard, the fact that we had to discuss it like it was a legitimate possibility shows you what we all really think, how nervous we are about whether or not Rand actually is a good GM or not, because if we had faith in the GM, we wouldn't even think that it's a possibility that they would bring back Andre Dillard. So, I'm just happy. I'm just happy it's over, and we will forever mean that Andre Dillard in our hearts. We will forever know that. One texter says, Jared, I imagine the reason that they kept Andre Dillard for as long as they did was because Bill Callahan wanted extra time to evaluate all the linemen. I would have just said, don't even worry about looking at his tape. Seriously. I don't even worry about it. Wes in Clarksville says, Rand must be listening to your show and heard you talking about Andre Dillard. I don't think that's the case. I would really hope that that's not the case. Dustin in Hopkinsville, Kentucky says the same thing. They freaking heard you guys talking, and they said, take that, Jared, and they released Andre Dillard. I can't imagine that's the case. But I do think that there's a lot of listening to this show in that building. And I don't know who's doing it. I feel like they probably listen. First of all, everybody listens, right? Like, if there was a show that talked about your life every day and constantly talked about whether or not you were good at your job, you would listen. As much as it would probably piss you off sometimes, you would listen. I would listen if there was let's talk about if Jared's a good talk show host or not. I would listen. But I also just kind of, see things. That being said, I don't think that Andre Dillard had anything to do with me. Because I think that, again, Andre Dillard's problems revolved around Andre Dillard. Skyler says Andre Dillard should have been cut in week 12 of last season. And that, I think, is, I'm not sure they really had that choice. But you know what's crazy about Andre Dillard? As bad as Andre Dillard was, Jalen Duncan was just as bad. And that's how sad all of last season was they had the worst left tackle I've ever seen in my life. And they finally couldn't play him anymore, so they put in another guy who was as bad, if not worse, as the worst guy I've ever seen in my life. Which was unbelievable. And I'm not here to rehash last season, but it is, kind of the remembrance of Andre Dillard as he has been officially released by the Titans. The Titans announced the signing of Sadiq Charles, who I don't even know who that is, really. I mean, I now know who he is because they signed him, but I have no opinion or thought on that. Mason Rudolph and Nick Westbrook-Akine, but the big story in the same release is that they released Andre Dillard. Unbelievable. Adam in Portland says, Ran hates you and wanted to stick it to you. Ran isn't terrible. You've evaluated him too quickly. He hasn't had the time to be trash yet. First of all, the thing that I think gets a little misconstrued, and let's see. I promised everybody I'd give Ran a second chance, so we're going to see. And so far, free agency, for the most part, outside of Mason Rudolph, for the most part, I am okay with free agency. Let's see the draft. But everybody, what was amazing to me was when I said that I would move on from Ran at the end of last year, it wasn't that I came out and said they need to fire Ran Carthon. What I said was they needed to clean house. That included Vrabel and Ran. And then everything turned into just Ran. Right? It became all about him. When I got up there and said, hey, at the end of the year, I'm fired. They lost to the Texans after they lost to the JV Texans. I said, if I owned this football team on Black Monday, they'd both be gone. That collaboration that we knew was never going to work, I'm like, they'd both be gone. And everybody got caught up in the Ran aspect of it. But I was talking about that whole Fakakta collaboration that they thought was going to work that had no prayer. That's what I was talking about. Now, again, that does mean firing Ran, but what they did was they promoted him, made him executive vice president. And we're talking about Andre Dillard. What did he do last year to get promoted? So this idea that I evaluated it too quickly, I was just saying, I don't like this idea that, the coach and the GM get hired separately, because then the second that you do that, like if they end up stinking this year, and it becomes obvious that Rand can't do the job, and he gets booted out the door, now what? You have to hire a general manager to work with a coach you just hired last year. And I think that's stupid. I think you just should have started over. But as we remember Andre Dillard, we should never forget how much the new personnel consultant of the Cleveland Browns, Mike Vrabel, believed and loved Andre Dillard.
Andre Dillard, is a player that we feel like his best football is in front of him with a new opportunity. Very skilled pass protector, which is something that we have to improve on. We have to be able to protect our quarterback. Bad things happen. We've all seen it. We've always talked about it. So I was excited to be able to add him. We're 2 days in, so I think if he keeps working against Arden, I think he'll be just fine. Arden's offered us a lot of just impact over there just in a short time. We don't have pads on, and they're not sacking a quarterback, but I know that Arden's able to mix moves, and so he's getting multiples moves and just different looks and wiggle, long arm, chop, everything you can give him. So that will take all we can get.
Mike, how would you evaluate Andre Dillard's progress to this point, and how have you seen him take coaching?
He's a very coachable player. I go in there in the morning just to check in with Haas, and he's in there before the meetings, just getting early jump on the installation. Those are things that he likes to do, to be able to, make sure that he's sound on whatever installation they put in the night before. And I think he has improved. I think every day that he's out there, he's gotten better. So we'll just keep working and keep going. But he's out there every single day and trying to get in condition and up to the standards in which we've set, about effort and about finish. And then again, all the athletically, he's got all the skills. And then now just making sure that, he continues to progress each and every day.
I'm so glad that part of my life is over of having to challenge that. Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us next. His thoughts on free agency, what's left to get. We'll do that next. Live out here at Pinewood Social downtown at Stillman & Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company live out at Pinewood Social again for Pinewood Madness, and we are giving away 2 tickets to tomorrow's SEC semifinals in the 5 o'clock hour. You have to be present. They got free parking here and shuttle buses to Bridgestone Arena. And so I will be taking that probably today for the nightcap session, which I'm very excited about. Hey, tune into 94.9 The Fan this Sunday for coverage of the Food City 500 in Bristol. Coverage will begin at 1:30 with the race starting at 2:30. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. The Titans have been very active in free agency, and they finally made a move that I absolutely positive. My favorite move that they've made so far. They released Andre Dillard. So as much as I hated the Mason Rudolph signing, I love the Dillard when Corey Curtis joins us now from News 2. Corey, let's start with this. As active as the Titans have been in free agency, do you like what you've seen? Do you hate what you see? Do you have questions about what you see? What would you say?
You know, I would say I've largely liked what I've seen, knowing it's not a finished product yet. They're addressing needs. They have added some quality players. They've certainly added some players that raise some eyebrows for a number of people that you just say, okay, well, you better be right. But that's their job, is to make those decisions on those guys. And if they're not right, then they get held accountable on moves that end up happening like today.
What did you think about the Calvin Ridley signing, the money and the commitment and the expectations for somebody who had a good season last year and then pretty much missed the previous 2 seasons before that?
Well, I mean, you talked about that. You know, he missed a lot of time, and usually that includes shaking some rust off. And I think he was a much better player after having missed so much time than I expected him to be. You know, is he one of the top 5 receivers in the game? No, he's not. Is he a really good receiver? Yeah, he is. And I am one who thinks that $23 million price tag, while it seems really high, after this cycle is over, it's not going to seem like that bad of a deal. That's how much these guys make now. That's just the way it is. There is some sticker shock. I mean, I bought a car during COVID. There was sticker shock, believe me, but that's what they were going for. That's what you had to do. And if the Titans wanted to add a quality receiver, that's what it was going to cost. I think the Christian Kirk deal and Corey Davis deals even, are good lessons for us. We scoffed at, $12 million for Corey Davis. That was nothing. That was bargain basement prices. How much did Christian Kirk get? 16 or 18 a year
18.
Last year? 18. And we all scoffed at it. Holy cow. I was one of them. I was like, that is a horrible deal. That was a great deal. Christian Kirk has been a great player for the Jaguars for 2 years. So, look, if he's a 1,000-yard receiver, which he has to be, he's worth it. All right? He's worth it. It sounds like he's motivated. We'll see if he stays motivated. So I don't scoff at it. He's got speed. He should add an element to the offense. He certainly, you can certainly still go receiver in round 1, but, you certainly seem leveraged to go offensive tackle there now.
So Trevor Matich was on the show earlier this week, Corey, and he said that while, right tackle could be on the roster, Petit Frere is the guy he kind of circles. He's more worried about defensive line at this point than he is offensive line. My question to you is, it's Simmons and a bunch of nobodies, so how worried are you that the Titans have not been even active in, like, the third level of defensive linemen that you can give, 1 year, $4 million to? They have not been active in that yet. How surprised are you by that?
I'm not that surprised because, they haven't put a big priority on that spot in years. I mean, you look at most of the defensive tackles they've had, they've been guys that have been like undrafted free agents or lower round guys that they've developed. I mean,
Danico.
Danico wasn't a defensive tackle.
I mean, he's a defensive lineman.
Yeah, but we're talking about defensive tackle, right?
I guess I'm kind of talking about to me, so what position would you say Simmons is? Because I think Simmons is a tackle, but he's actually a DN because he's not a nose tackle.
He's a 4-3 tackle, and he's a 3-4 end.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he is. And what you're really missing right now is the nose. And we've also seen, Naquan Jones, who they let go. Naquan Jones was a 4th rounder who was very good. at that role. Also signing Ridley, maybe that opens you up to drafting a defensive tackle in round 2. Maybe the big kid from Texas is there in round 2, and you want to plug the 350-pounder in there. That it might give you that kind of freedom. So we wait and see. I think that this administration is very focused on scoring points. I think they're very focused on completing passes, and I think they're very focused on stopping passes. So I don't know if stopping the run is quite the paramount that it has been for the last 6 years.
Yeah, I just think that if it's just Simmons out there playing every snap, it's going to be 2020 all over again. And that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah,
where it was Simmons,
possible.
Landry, and nobody.
Maybe they outscore people 31-28, and that's the plan.
Good luck on that, by the way, with a rookie quarterback and no right tackle. I mean, so the problem I have, Corey, is the holes right now that are still there. And they do have the draft, but, I'm not worried about left tackle because I think they'll fill that with that 7th pick.
Sure.
But I am worried defensive line, inside backer, corner safety, and the right side of the offensive line, I'm scared to death about. And it's the anxiety that they won't do anything to shore up those holes that I think that makes me nervous. Are you nervous about the holes that exist on the roster?
Well, I mean, sure, I would like to see those holes get filled. We're in day 3 of free agency. So, I mean, we're just talking about the end of the first wave. So, no, I'm not panicking that those aren't filled yet. We'll see where they go. As waves 2 and 3 come through. The thing we have to remember is, there are still guys who get cut at this point. There are important dates for guaranteed deals where guys are going to be waived and guys can become available. So, I think that, there could still be more guys out there. There's certainly more signings to be made. And as you go longer in free agency, for a lot of these guys, the prices come down.
What do you think about Tony Pollard? And what do you think about Derrick Henry going to the Ravens?
I was really am I the only one who was stunned by the Tony Pollard signing? I mean, I
you know what's crazy? No, you weren't. I was stunned when they signed Pollard because it was right out the gate that they signed Tony Pollard. When I thought running back was a position that they needed to sign somebody, I didn't think it was a position that they needed to just immediately at the first second sign somebody.
Yeah, wave 2, wave 3, you bring in a guy for 2.5 because there's a lot of guys who can play that position. But clearly they put a priority on getting a guy who could, A, catch passes, and B, can really run. I mean, he was a wide receiver in college, wasn't he?
He was a wide receiver in high school, and I believe he was like a 2-star receiver prospect, and they turned him to a running back at Memphis.
Memphis, okay. But he can really run, and he can catch the football. And so, clearly they've got a plan, and there's going to be a lot of touch. It's got to include a lot of touches for the backfield in both receiving and running to have both of those guys. I guess you've got Spears on his rookie deal, so you figure you can afford it, but you really thought that money would be spent elsewhere. I've liked Tony Pollard for years, so I'm not going to scoff at the player. I remember when he first came in, I said he's better than Zeke right now. I'm like, you need to bench Zeke and put that guy out there because he was a lightning bolt. So I don't mind the addition to the team. I just wonder how many touches there are from two guys who are clearly a priority in getting the football.
So I have a thought on Derrick Henry and the Ravens, and it is that I hate the move because I hate the Ravens, but I'm not sure I necessarily love the move for the Ravens for two reasons. One, they run pretty much their entire offense out of shotgun, and I don't think Derrick's good out of the shotgun. I think he's good when he's running downhill. Two, the Ravens, in my opinion, their biggest problem, they're the best team in the league when they have a lead. Before they got Derrick, they were the best team to grind you out when they had a lead. Their problem is they can't play catch-up because Lamar cannot throw with the top quarterbacks in the league, and I don't think Derrick Henry helps you play catch-up. So I don't think this is as good as it sounds on paper of putting Derrick Henry with Lamar Jackson. What are your thoughts?
Well, number one, I have said from the get-go, and I don't think this makes me a genius, that he was going to go to the Ravens. It's absolutely the team that made the most sense, and it's absolutely the team that has shown the most interest. So everybody who brought up Dallas or wherever, I'm like, he's going to be a Raven. This is going to happen. And also think about it. He has handed it to the Ravens several times in his career. So they've seen the best of Derrick Henry. And so they know exactly what they're getting, and I don't blame them for wanting it. I agree with you, not the best out of the shotgun, not going to improve their passing game. Clearly they've got a plan for how he helps their offense. But here is something that we haven't talked about with this. What is the one thing? It's not the one thing. One of the things that Derrick has been wonderful with for the Titans is durability. And they have gone through running backs like the Titans have gone through wide receivers and kickers and quarterbacks.
Right tackles.
Right tackles. They've had some good ones. They just can't ever keep them healthy for whatever reason. And now you've got a guy who's had one real injury in his 8 years in the National Football League. So he will bring them durability. And they have to know how to deal with him being a bullseye, because he'll still be a bullseye back there. He's 245 pounds, and he's unmistakable. And everybody knows the plan now, and that's get him 3 yards deep. And so how do you take advantage of that? That's the challenge that's in front of the Baltimore Ravens.
Fireball Hot Take Friday. Corey Curtis, News 2, is our guest on the program. Corey, what's your hot take this week?
I was debating in my head what's the worst free agent signing in Titans history. And I kind of weigh one for another, and because it's not just financial. I think Andre Dillard has to be the worst free agent signing ever for the Titans, because he was handed such an important part of the offense, and he completely failed. And I feel like you could have made 3 calls to 3 separate people, a coach, a sportscaster, and a fan in Philadelphia, and they all could have told you the same thing, that Andre Dillard doesn't love football. And for a team that championed Does He Love Ball, to completely whiff on something that was obvious to so many is horrific. And given a lot of money and really a cornerstone piece in destroying your offense for a year. Look, I could have told you that Vic Beasley was a bad signing when it happened, that I questioned how much he really cared, but they didn't have to have Vic Beasley. They had to have Andre Dillard, and they got him, and he was horrible.
So I wrote down 3 names as you were talking as like the worst free agent signings in Titans history. Vic Beasley was one of them. Vic Beasley, Andre Dillard, David Givens.
But David Givens got hurt. I mean, I can't bemoan a guy because he got injured. The other guys just didn't care. They took your money and said, "Sweet, I'm out."
I will never forget when Vic Beasley didn't show up to the start of training camp, and they had to put him on the suspended list. And he had like a couple of days to opt out of the season for COVID. And the old man was like, I think it was during a break. He was like, as a GM, I'm thinking about how we just paid him a $3 million signing bonus, and if he opts out for the season, we can't get that signing bonus back.
Wasn't it $10 million?
I think the signing bonus was $3 million, but the salary was $7 million or whatever.
Yeah, no, I remember when they signed him. I'm like, that dude doesn't care. I mean, this team, because I remember J-Rob and Vrabel over and over again. Does he love ball? Does he love ball? I'm like, what are they doing? That guy doesn't care. This is not their mantra. And was that the same year they signed Clowney?
Yes.
I'm like, why are you signing both of them? Holy cow.
Well, you thought they'd be back in the AFC Championship game if they signed Clowney. And I tried to tell you. I tried to help you out there. That's why I love you.
They could have gotten from him what they got, with the Browns got a pretty good year from him this year, didn't they?
Ravens.
The Ravens got a good year from him.
They did.
Ravens. Yeah, but he's surrounded by some really good pieces, but showed up. So I was wrong on that one. But you know what? If they'd had Brady, maybe they would have been in the Super Bowl anyway.
Exactly. Corey Curtis, News 2, as always, joining us on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Corey, great stuff. Appreciate you.
Have a great weekend.
Yep. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Mike Vrabel has a new job. Yes, he's got a new job. We'll get into that coming up next. Again, we are live out at Pinewood Social. Let's talk about Twice Daily. That's right. I love Twice Daily. That is my convenience store of choice. I have the Twice Daily app. You just download it to your phone. You save right there. In fact, they'll send you offers. You know, it'll be like a free this with a purchase today. And I'm like, all right, let's go get my free whatever it is. It's great. Twice Daily has your cravings. That's right. And not only do they have your cravings, but you can save on every visit. Stop in and get rewarded. All you need to do is join that rewards program to unlock special discount savings and enter their sweepstakes and so much more. Try their new wraps, Italian, ham and cheddar, turkey and Swiss, and Nashville hot chicken. They're made to order with your favorite toppings. And when you download the Twice Daily app, you can order ahead. Or at Twice Daily, it's snack time all the time. And they have your favorites like chicken fingers, tater rounds, and the new pretzels. Twice Daily. What are you craving?
we see that Mike Vrabel signed on to coach, do something with the Cleveland Browns. Do you know exactly what that role entails?
Yeah. First of all, really cool kind of idea, right? Because Vrabel is an excellent coach, former coach of the year, wasn't able to land a head coaching job this year, but obviously wants to be involved and is very, very good and is going to get one next year, right? I think. So he goes to Cleveland. He's going to be basically a sounding board / kind of use his experience for the coaches and for the personnel department. So, when you're a head coach and you're so locked in on the players, I'm not saying you kind of lose a little touch of the personnel side, and he is very, very involved, but he goes to a place that is one of the more forward-thinking places. So he gets to help the coaches or whatever, and then probably learn a little bit personnel for when he gets a second chance. I feel very confident that Vrabel's going to get a second chance as a head coach. He'll have a much more well-rounded
view,
resume, or whatever you would say, to do it.
Well,
I like it.
There you go, Ian Rappaport on the Pat McAfee Show. Mike Vrabel has been hired as a coaching personnel consultant for the Cleveland Browns. And I love how Rappaport's like, man, this is just a great forward-thinking idea to have Vrabel as a sounding board for Kevin Stefanski. Ian, do you think Kevin Stefanski chose to have Mike Vrabel come aboard his coaching staff like that?
That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe he would feel threatened.
I don't think the answer to that is yes. I think that's the owner. And I think Mike Vrabel I think Kevin Stefanski got put on notice today because his replacement is right there, and it's Mike Vrabel. And before you say, well, wait a minute, he's not going to be looking for his job. He's not. Remember when you brought in Tim Kelly? And he was there to help out Todd Downing? And he did for that year. And then what happened? He was there to take his job. If things go poorly, he's the guy. That's what's happening here with Stefanski. Stefanski has been put on notice. And he's 37-30, even though he's two-time coach of the year or whatever, doesn't matter. 37-30, and he's 1-2 in the playoffs, was 0-1, and they got skunked by the Texans last year. And here's the reason why Mike Vrabel is there. To me, this is Jimmy Haslam getting out in front, basically hiring Vrabel so that in the middle of the year, if he doesn't like the way things are going, he can fire Stefanski and put Vrabel into coach, and he doesn't have to compete with everybody else for Vrabel, because then once the season is over, he'll interview David Shaw, and then he'll hire Mike Vrabel to be his coach. That's what's going on here. And here's why it's Vrabel. Because I think Stefanski's a fine coach. But the biggest problem the Cleveland Browns have right now, they have a great roster. They have a great defense with Jim Schwartz. They have great players. You all know that. Stefanski is not the problem, by the way. The problem is that the owner stupidly traded for Deshaun Watson. And so because of that Deshaun Watson trade, they have to make this work. Because Deshaun Watson practically owns the team for the next 3 years. He co-owns it. And I said it when they signed him to that fully guaranteed contract. I said, Deshaun, if it doesn't work out, Deshaun's not the one who's going to be getting the boot. It's going to be the coach. And Mike Vrabel may not be the greatest strategist in the world, but I promise you he knows how to work with Deshaun. That's why Mike Vrabel is there. He's not a sounding board. Mike Vrabel is the definition of an old dog can't learn new tricks, and you know it. Personnel consultant. What the hell does Mike Vrabel know about personnel? He never did it. He's there as the coach in case in Cleveland. And I think this had nothing to do with Stefanski. I promise you. Stefanski will say this was my idea. I don't think it was. All right, we're to your phones next. 615-737-1025. Add the Vrabel thing to the list. I think he's going to be the next coach of the Cleveland Browns if Stefanski doesn't basically turn it around with Watson. I mean, I thought the Browns had a great year last year, all things considered. And they fired the offensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt. Somebody had to get the boot. And so I think that if Deshaun's not right next year, It's going to be Stefanski's butt, and Vrabel's going to be the coach. 615-737-1025. We're to you next. Fireball Hot Take Friday. Fireball whiskey, that's right. It is the weekend, folks, and there's no better way to celebrate than with ice-cold Fireball cinnamon whiskey. That's right. I love Fireball whiskey. It goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There is no better way to ignite the night than to do it with ice-cold Fireball cinnamon whiskey. That's right. So if you're out this weekend and you're celebrating, be sure to order up some Fireball shots. That's Fireball whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball cinnamon whiskey. Stillman and Company, we are live out at Pinewood Social, again giving away SEC basketball ticket challenge brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook, Twin Peaks, and Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Go to theGameNashville.com/bracket challenge or the 1025 The Game app and sign up for your chance to win 4-day passes to Bonnaroo. I promised phones, and phones we go. Mike is up next here on our program, 615-737-1025. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Jared. something occurred to me yesterday while I was listening to you furiously pull theories out of your butt. One was that you had Dylan, I can't say without laughing. You had Radens playing right tackle and I guess we're getting rid of Nicholas Petit-Frere, which he's been up and down, whatever, a lot of down. That's not happening. Radens going to be your right guard, as Trevor said. I'm going to go with what Trevor says, who's actually played right guard, not just used right guard deodorant. Nicholas Petit-Frere is going to be your right.
Why are you so mad about that?
I'm not mad.
You seem pretty mad.
I'm not mad, dude. This is how I talk.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you think Radens is going to be the starting right guard, and you're okay with that?
I'd rather have him at right guard than right tackle, for God's sake, and you want to put him at right tackle.
Well, I mean, I just think that Petit-Frere freaking sucks. That's why I don't want him at right tackle.
Before you cut me off, I know you're quick on the trigger. I got one more and Jared, I love your show. I respect you. You're good at your job, buddy. I'm not mad. All right. The other theory that you pulled out was that they're going to get rid of Burks because Burks doesn't play slot, right?
Correct.
Look it up. He played more slot than anything at Arkansas, where he was a Blitnikoff Award candidate.
Yeah,
He
but
played
they don't care
tons of
about
slot.
that. Like, they don't care. Peter Skoronski played tackle in college. It doesn't matter. They drafted him to be an outside guy. He plays on the outside. Mike, thank you for your call. Burks is an outside guy. That's all Burks does. Burks doesn't run routes. Burks runs deep. And you don't put a guy in the slot who does not run routes well. That's why, again, the throws think about all the catches Burks has made over the years, right? They're all from the outside, and they're all him going deep. Has there ever been, these kind of crazy combative catches like DeAndre Hopkins makes? No, because that's not his game. He runs by the guy, or he tries to jump over the guy. That is what his game is, and that in the NFL is on the outside. This idea of, well, he played it in college, right, and so did Peter. He played tackle in college, and they're not going to let him play there in the NFL. I think the reason they're going to move Treylon Burks is because they probably view Burks as a 4th or 5th round type player. And so they'll get a 5th round pick in exchange for Burks, and then they'll say, well, we can just draft a receiver now in the 4th or 5th round with the pick that we got for Burks, and we'll have that guy for the next 4 years as opposed to Burks, who you'll have for the next 2. That's it. And on the Radens and Petit-Frere front, if you've listened to this show at all, you know I don't want either guy. I think they both free. I mean, Radens, I think, is limited. And I think Petit-Frere stinks. And I don't think Petit-Frere has it right here in the chest. Because Gentry Estes keeps harping to me that when I think he was covering Georgia at the time or Alabama at the time. Gentry used to be in Louisville, and then he was covering, I think, Alabama, and he was covering Georgia before then. And Gentry said that Nicholas Petit-Frere was the #1 offensive line recruit in the country. And that when that was going on, he had offers from everybody. Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State. And the guy ended up going in the 3rd round. He's got 1st round tackle measurables. And he goes in the 3rd round? And Gentry said to me, he's like, that's a red flag. And I agree. And I've seen it in his play. Petit-Frere does not have that, what Taylor Lewan had in him, that sometimes was a little too much. He doesn't have that in him. And I don't think Bill Callahan can get that out of him. I mean, there's no doubt that Petit-Frere has more talent than Radens, but he's got more talent than a lot of guys on the team. That doesn't mean that he's going to be any good. And so I would not want him playing right tackle for this team next year. The idea, and a lot of you guys are okay with fudging it. Bill Callahan will fix it. I'm like, ugh. Not sure how that makes me feel. Dylan in Antioch's up next. Thank you for waiting. What's up, Dylan?
Hey, what's up, Jared? That last caller, man, he got me fired off. That was good stuff. But I want to call in and talk about the Mason Rudolph thing. And It's a terrible, terrible trade. I don't know how anyone is defending this. This guy is best known for getting his head bashed in by Myles Garrett in a playoff. Was that a playoff game, I think?
No, it was a regular Thursday night game.
Thursday night. That's it. But, yeah, the backup quarterback is maybe the most that's an extremely important position. Everyone's like, oh, he's just a backup. Yeah, he's just a backup. You need a veteran backup. You send this guy in, he's going to get killed. and Levis is going to get hurt. I don't see how people do not understand that.
I don't get.
Crazy.
Here's what I don't understand, Dylan. Dylan, good call. Here's what I don't understand on the Mason Rudolph front. How did all of a sudden he go from freaking terrible, which he has been for like the first 5 years he's been in the NFL, to an acceptable option to have to play on a team that has had to use their backup quarterback for a significant portion of the season each of the last 2 years? Like, again, his career history. Drafted in the third round by the Steelers in 2018. Ben gets hurt in 2019. He gets put in. He sucks. He gets benched for Duck Hodges, who retired like 3 years ago. And Duck Hodges was a sixth-round rookie. He gets benched for Duck Hodges. Then Ben comes back. He sits the bench. Then Ben retires. They draft Kenny Pickett. They sign Mitchell Trubisky. Kenny Pickett gets hurt. Trubisky gets the nod because, again, the Steelers have decided that they think Trubisky is better than Pickett. Rudolph. Trubisky sucks so bad that finally they pull the plug on Mitch Trubisky and they put Mason Rudolph in there. Mason Rudolph wins a couple of games. Again, I didn't see him. I couldn't tell you what happened. Jake Browning won a couple of games last year. Josh Dobbs has won a couple of games. Mason Rudolph wins a couple of games, and they just decide we still don't want to bring him back. They don't even have a backup quarterback right now, and their starting quarterback is Russell Wilson, and he sucks. What are we doing? What are we doing here? I mean, it's just freaking ridiculous. And so the Titans, with an injury-prone starting quarterback, with all these potential backup quarterback options on the market, the Titans, with an injury-prone starting quarterback, decide to sign this guy who the Steelers demoted to third string for 5 years and weren't interested in bringing back after he won 3 games for them last year, in favor of Russell Wilson. And now who knows who the backup in Pittsburgh is going to be. He stinks. And everybody's like, well, Jared, it doesn't matter. It's just backup quarterback. Backup quarterbacks play nowadays because all the quarterbacks get hurt, especially your quarterback. Oh, well, Jared, he won some games for the Steelers last year. Everybody wins games for the Steelers. That's the whole point. Tomlin, it doesn't matter how bad their team is. He'll win 9 games and get in the playoffs every year. That's what makes Tomlin Tomlin. I've never seen anything like it. Mason Rudolph. Sean says if Levis goes down, they'll put in Willis. That'll get you fired. and let me say this, and I'm glad somebody brought this up because I am going to be completely honest with all of you right now. Ian, I am not a believer in getting anybody in trouble for something that hasn't already happened. You know, that idea of like, you know, you did this, but it hasn't happened yet. So this is a promise that will come to reality if Mason Rudolph ends up having to play this year and stinks.
Okay.
I will be merciless.
How many games are we talking here if he has to play?
I don't care. I don't care. If it's Blaine Gabbert Sunday Night Football playing the finale against the Colts, Rand Carthon will get it like he has never gotten it from me. He will get it the way John Hines got it. They got me in trouble. Like, that's how bad he'll get it if Mason Rudolph has to go in there when it matters and he sucks, which is what I am anticipating. I mean, you guys remember that Sunday Night Football game against Indianapolis, win and in, and big game Blaine was in there, and he stunk. So bad that the Titans are like, okay, we have to go get a real backup quarterback.
Surely he's better than Blaine Gabbert.
I don't think he is.
He can throw at least.
I think that's who he is. I don't think he can. I think that's who he is. I think he is the Blaine Gabbert. I mean, I think Rudolph, this is such a joke that they signed Mason Rudolph. All right, 615-737-1025, the Vols. I got on the bandwagon with this team, and they lost on Saturday at home to Kentucky, and they got their asses kicked in the SEC tournament. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, live from Pinewood Social, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios, Pinewood Social, 33 Peabody Street here in Nashville for Pinewood Madness on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. The Pinewood Madness Patio SEC Watch Party is presented by Guinness, worth the wait. So come on out, and again, you can win tickets to tomorrow's SEC semifinals. We'll be giving those away in the 5 o'clock hour. Frozen cocktails, game day bites, and they've got the complimentary shuttle buses to and from Bridgestone Arena, complimentary with any purchase. So, if you're a Vols fan, you're probably not coming to win those tickets today because your team got beat in the first game early today, and not only was it over, it was over early.
They got doubled up at halftime.
I mean, it was over. It was over by the 10-minute mark in the first half. It reminds me of years ago when, I decided I was going to do cardio during a Braves baseball game. And I was like, so I'm going to get on the elliptical, and first pitch is at 12:05, and I'm going to do cardio for an hour while I watch the game. And the Braves gave up like 7 runs in the first 2 innings. And I was like, well, so much for that plan. Click. That's what it was for Vol fans. And my buddy, Scott Fischel, who went to Texas and is married to a huge Vols fan, I think he uses me as his outlet because I don't know if he can say these things at home. But as a Texas alum, he loves to crap on Rick Barnes, especially this time of the year. And as they say, misery loves company. And so he loves to talk to me about crapping on Rick Barnes because that's what I always do in this month. But I'm not going to do that today. I think today's loss might have been the best thing that ever happened to this Vol basketball team. I'm on the bandwagon. I'm not getting off. And I'm going to tell you why. Because these conference tournaments, for the most part, are meaningless. Every time there's a team that that's on the bubble, they get to the final of the SEC tournament, and the committee still says, we don't care. Last year, Vanderbilt was that team. They came in supposedly on the bubble. They got hot in the tournament, and in the end, the committee said, and so these conference tournaments don't matter. Now, Joe told me today that he thinks that Tennessee is not going to be on the one line because of this loss, but I actually think that that's a good thing because that'll put them in the South region as opposed to having to go all the way out west. They'll go to Dallas. And as somebody who has traveled in the NCAA tournament, the flight times and things like that matters. But the reason why I think this might be the best thing that ever happened to the Vols is because when they won the SEC regular season, they beat South Carolina on the road. They knew they were good. At that point, they knew they were good. They knew they were a once. They knew they were a national title contender. They knew Dalton Knecht was maybe the best player in the country. They knew all of that. And the problem is, and I've seen this in the NFL, I've seen this in college basketball, I've seen this in every sport except for baseball, in which any baseball tournament is so weird and funky and based on that pitcher or that, one. I've seen teams get too fat and happy in the NCAA tournament. I've seen teams overlook opponents, overlook weekends, not have their head in the right place. And I'm going to tell you, after that embarrassment, anybody. They will not they could be playing Scarbini State University in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and they will take them seriously. I promise you, they're going to practice tomorrow, I bet, or practice on Sunday. They're going to get back they're probably back in Knoxville in the next 2 hours because they probably flew here. And so they've probably cleaned up. They're probably already on the buses, checking out of the hotel. They thought they were going to be here. It wouldn't surprise me if they're back in Knoxville in the next hour or 2 hours. And I think you're going to see them practice on Sunday. And then they'll have a selection show media availability afterwards, a selection so watch party, you bring the boosters in, whatever. And I guarantee every microphone in front of them will be about, yeah, we just have to focus on the next game. We can't worry about what happened in that SEC tournament. We don't like the way we played. We can't worry about it, whatever. You're not going to see any of that. They're not going to get caught up on what they did. They're not going to get caught up on it. They're not going to get caught up on any of it. They're not going to worry about it. And I got to tell you, I've seen this. I think that's a good thing. I don't value winning the SEC tournament. I don't think it matters. And so, look, it's always fun to go to these games, and it's fun to win, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Nobody ever says, boy, I tell you, I really like this guy. He's a 3-time Big East Conference Tournament champion. Nobody cares about that. It's fun in the moment. And it's fun especially because it's the best of the best in the conferences. But it doesn't matter. I remember when Maryland had one of the best teams in the country. Duke was the defending national champion. Maryland was one of the best teams in the country. North Carolina, or maybe NC State. Well, I think there was another third team in the ACC that year that was really good. And Maryland lost early. They ended up winning the national title that year. Vanderbilt beat Kentucky in the SEC championship game in 2012. Cal said after the game, it's the best thing that ever happened to us. Because that Anthony Davis team needed the reset. I thought the Vols might get that with the loss against Kentucky the other night. But they're definitely going to get it with that embarrassment they had today. So if they melt down in the first round of the NCAA tournament on Rick Barnes, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And at this point, if they choke with this team, then I just don't think there's anything that you can say, and it is what it is, and there's no changing reality about Rick Barnes. And at that point, it'll be almost like a ghost that is just haunting that program. But we're not there yet. I still think this Vols team is very much a contender, and I think today, big picture, was a good thing. If you're a Vol fan and you have tickets for the tournament, it wasn't a good thing because you're not going to want to go tomorrow. You're not going to want to go on Sunday. But if you care about what really matters in college basketball, I think it might have been a good thing for Tennessee. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. 615-737-1025. Your reaction to the Tennessee just butt kicking today. I mean, embarrassing. Embarrassing. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, we are live out here at Pinewood Social again on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106 The Game.
He'll just dribble out what remains on the clock. The buzzer sounds, and you can wrap this one in maroon and white. State knocks off the #1 seed in the SEC tournament, defeating the SEC regular season champions, going wire to wire to do it, 73-56.
There you go. That was Neil Price on the Mississippi State Radio Network from Learfield Sports. And so the Vols are out. And let me just say this, Vol fans. I think that's good. And I'm not giving up on this basketball team. I'm not doing it. And you shouldn't either. Big picture, the SEC tournament is not that big of a deal. I can't tell you how many SEC championships has Kentucky won. I don't even know. It's all about the next tournament. And I can promise you that those practices in Knoxville getting ready for Liberty or whoever it is they're going to play, I guarantee you those practices are going to be intense. And I think that's a good thing. And I think Tennessee knows that they could lose to whoever. Joe Rexroad has his column up at the Athletic. He says, as for the Vols, it's not ideal that their worst basketball of the season is the last basketball they'll play before the NCAA tournament. I disagree with Joe. I disagree. That they will be so motivated this week, and they'll know that they can be beaten by anybody. They'll have the fear of being sent home quickly. They'll have that fear. So I'm not getting off the bandwagon. You guys can go ahead, but I'm not going to. Now, I still want to keep with me the right to be able to give you the I told you so with Rick Barnes if they do, in fact, choke. Is that fair?
I don't know. That's pretty borderline.
I mean, it does feel like a true, hedge. But on one hand, I really do believe in this basketball team, and I'm not going to let this game get me off of that. And I've seen, again, an embarrassing defeat turn a team around. 9-2 for the Predators to Dallas. We saw what happened there. But I have been the poster child in town for pointing out Rick Barnes' failures when people didn't want to believe it. Now Tennessee fans just know it's reality, and they're going to have to work around it. Kevin says, our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kevin says, I hate to tell you, Jared, but you're going to get thrown off the bandwagon very violently because the Vols will be out in the first weekend. I don't buy it. They're going to play a 15 seed in round one, and they'll get either a 7 or a 10, and you know those 7-10s are toss-ups. They'll get a 7 or a 10. It'll be a Power 5 school. It'll be a Michigan State-type school, and they'll beat them. And I guarantee you the oldest trick in the book when it comes to the NCAA tournament is all week Rick Barnes and the coaching staff will be preparing them for the 7 or the 10 team. It's the oldest trick in the book. You tell them, hey, this is what St. Peter's does, and you go over the plays, and it's not actually what St. Peter's does. It's really what Mississippi State does. It's really what Michigan State does. And I think that they will be fired up. Texture says, I never thought Jared Stillman would be the one to speak logically about a Vols basketball loss, but here we are. I needed that pep talk, Jared. You're welcome. The one thing I ask you is that you don't go away from us if they do, in fact, lose to Scarbini Tech in the first round of the tournament, because I will be hammering Tennessee. I'll say this. Rick Barnes, I've always said, is the perfect coach for Tennessee, and Tennessee's the perfect spot for him. Because if it was a basketball school, like if he was coaching at Indiana, they'd want to fire him for all of the lack of success in the NCAA tournament. But Tennessee's not a basketball school. And so what happens is Rick Barnes is always competitive, and is always competitive against the SEC rivals that you hate the most. Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, Vandy. He's always good against them in the regular season. So he gives you something to do. He gives you a team to root for. And then he loses in the tournament. You're sad for 24 hours, and you turn your attention to baseball. Gunner says, keep the Stillman kiss of death alive. Kenny Pickett and Joe Burrow don't like it. By the way, I'd just like to set the record straight. Everybody says Kenny Pickett was my MVP pick. That's not true. My MVP pick was Joe Burrow. What I was telling you in the FanDuel spots all summer was that Kenny Pickett had good odds for MVP. But my MVP pick was Joe Burrow, who was as equally not the MVP. By the way, what a fall from grace for Kenny Pickett. Backing up the Eagles. Picked over Russell Wilson picked over him. Chris says the fear you speak when it comes to Tennessee will not put the ball in the hoop. They shot horribly today, and today isn't the first time. I can easily see this happening again soon. It was bad. I saw that they were 10% from three in the first half. Like, that's horrendous. Oof. One texter says, I don't totally disagree with you, but sometimes the fear of losing hurts your play compared to playing your best ball headed into the tournament. I would just say that the fear of losing, if you're afraid to lose and then that makes you worse, like that anxiety makes you worse, like Mariota at the end of his tenure as quarterback, then you're not probably tough enough to win the national title anyways. But this team's a tough team. This team went on the road, beat Alabama. This team went on the road and beat Kentucky. This team went on the road and beat South Carolina. This is a good basketball team. And I'm not giving up on them. I saw enough out of them for me to put my foot down and say, fans, this year probably going to be different. And I'm not getting off the bandwagon. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So I think there is a way for me personally and this radio program to help the Tennessee Titans play better in 2024 and win more. And I will tell you what that is, and we will do that next. 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. White Bison. That's right, I love White Bison. White Bison is your local coffee shop with specialty coffee and so much more. Explore their selection of premium coffee blends, refreshing iced drinks, and food featuring fresh-made premium breakfast, lunch, and snack options. Download the app today, the White Bison app, the White Bison Twice Daily app. Join today the rewards program and place orders on the go anytime, get rewards, and earn free coffee. Stop by the White Bison and brighten your day with a sweet cinnamon beehive latte, an iced honey nut macchiato, or the vanilla rooibos tea latte. Find your perfect cup at White Bison, where it's finely crafted for you every day. White Bison and Twice Daily, fresh all day.
Why come back?
It's a new start. When I was going, through the process of, trying to evaluate the teams that I could possibly be with, I know that I have a certain type of skills, and so I'm not, scared to go with the good or with, who's trying to be good. So I think, playing them twice a year, I was watching them and looking at, the things they did have. I know that D-Hop's here, and I know that, I want to play with another receiver on the other side that can, help me, do what I do best too. So I knew that they had that, and I knew they had a really good defense, and, they were upcoming and stuff. So I was looking into it, and, I really wanted to honestly be with the Jags. But, there was a lot of things that I wasn't working out for me, and then I think the Titans had that other side for me. So I chose the Titans. And obviously the money was pretty good, so I went with that.
There you go, Calvin Ridley today. Why you picked the Titans? Let me throw out a bunch of bull crap and then tell you, the money. That's why I went to the Titans. Now, I'm going to say this. I loved Calvin Ridley's press conference today. Seemed confident. Again, it felt like it was not rehearsed. It felt like it lacked bull crap. Now, that doesn't mean that it was bull crap free, but it felt like it lacked it. But Calvin Ridley said something today in which I heard, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do my part for the Titans. Ian, we don't say we on the show when talking about the Titans, even though I do refer to the Titans off air as we. Did you know that, by the way?
I don't notice it too much.
Oh, my God. I love the Titans as much as anybody. I love that team. You know I love that team. You all know that I love that team. And that's my team. In fact, I was texting with somebody from the Titans earlier this week, and I was asking, I forget what I was asking, but I said, and if we do this, and the guy said, we, and I said, yeah, we, as in we want to win. We don't want to almost win. But I understand that my job is to entertain people on their way home from work, and their job is to play and win football games. And I understand the difference. I don't think I'm a member of the team. I don't think that if they win the Super Bowl, I should get a ring or anything like that. But I am going to do my part for the team. Calvin Ridley was talking about his motivation today after the 2 seasons away from football that he's had. Here's what Calvin Ridley said.
Yeah, obviously I was very motivated to coming off my suspension. People would, thought I wouldn't be able to, 2 years off, you wouldn't think somebody would be able to get 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. But I used that, everyone's saying that, he wouldn't, be still himself, Obviously I wasn't, because I still was, trying to learn the game again. It was coming so fast, and, football it gets a lot being 2 years off. And, I was dealing with all the tightness in the beginning when I first came in. So, and, I do listen to some of the stuff, just to give me a little boost to, go out there and play well and all that. So I was hearing the people say, 2 years off, this and that. So when I first went there, I was ready to, I was ready to do anything, that I had to do in order to be great.
Okay. Did you hear the part right there where he said, I do listen to get motivated? Calvin, I got the show for you. It's this one. And so I got 4 words. Excuse me. 3. 3 words. Pay what you, that's 4. Pay what you owe. I will get on Calvin Ridley's ass because for $25 million a season, which I know it's technically 23, but it's 50 guaranteed over 2. That's $25 million a season. For $25 million a season, I better not get Yancey Thigpen. I better not get Carl Pickens. I better not get Julio Jones. I better not get that. And the first person that will let you know about it every day is going to be me. And so when he says, hey, look, I listen to the noise. I use it to get motivated. They say I can't. You had 7 drops last season. Now, I don't have a problem with the fact that the Titans paid Calvin Ridley all that money because that's the only way that you get players is that you overpay. That's just how it works. Bad teams, they pay a bad team tax. And you are paying a bad team tax. Because right now, you are a bad team. Even in that cut when he was asked about the Titans, he was like, yeah, I don't have to go with the good teams or the trying to get their teams. He don't want to say, hey, I go with the good teams or the bad teams. Doesn't matter to me. So you got to overpay. And the Titans overpaid. I don't have a problem with that. But there are warts when it comes to Calvin Ridley. He is 30 years old. That is going to be a problem when speed is your game. Guys don't get faster when they turn 30. Secondly, what happened in 2021? That is an issue. And then third, the 7 drops last year. And again, if I was one of these, optimistic Bobo fans, my team's going to win every game, I'd argue, well, he was just shaking off the rust with those 7 drops. But I don't know that. And not only that, he had a massive drop in the last game against the Titans, in which Trevor Lawrence delivered a beautiful ball that probably would have been a touchdown because I think Ridley had the guy smoked, and it hit him right in the hands, and he dropped it. And I don't want to see that around here. So I'm going to tell you this right now. When it comes to expectations, nobody's going to have higher expectations put upon them than Calvin Ridley because of the money. And the money does equal expectation. It's like, again, the Matt Duchene thing. The Predators got rid of Matt Duchene because he wasn't a leader, because he didn't work hard, because he wasn't bought in. And no matter what they said to him, no matter how they tried to get him, no matter how hard he played on the ice some nights, he could never truly buy in. And instead of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, they just said, you know what, let's move on. Not a bad player, but he just didn't fit. He goes to Dallas. They're paying him no money, $3 million. He's doing okay in like a third-line secondary scoring role. And everybody's like, oh, this is going to haunt us. I'm like, no. They did this on purpose. Because the Matt Duchene that was on your team was the $8 million a year savior of the franchise, Matt Duchene. And when you're the savior of the franchise, you better save the franchise. Well, guess what? I'll tell you right now. If Calvin Ridley wants motivation, I'll put it on him. You're brought here to make that quarterback a special quarterback. And if you don't, it's on you. And that's the point of the $25 million. Now, let me say this as I, again, vow to do my part for the Titans, Ian. You got to have thick skin. If you're going to listen to the outside noise, you got to have it. But I'm just telling you right now, when I heard that today, when he said, I listen to the outside noise because it motivates me, and I heard the people that doubt me, and I'll just tell you right now, I'm your guy. This is your show. If you want a show that is not going to kiss your tush, this is that show. If you want somebody that's going to ask you real questions, this is the show. We had Andrew Burnett on the day he got hired by the Predators, and I asked him about the DUI on the golf cart. Because we're going to ask. And I'm not asking to have Calvin Ridley on the show. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, if you're going to listen, and let me tell you this, the players, they know, they hear. A.J. Brown used to listen to this show every day. So if he's a guy who's fine with listening to the outside noise and feeding off of it, this is your show right here. One texter into the text line says, Jared, I beg of you, please stay out of Calvin Ridley's head. Don't you want me in Calvin Ridley's head? If motivating him, if he says he listens to outside noise to be motivated, don't you want me in his head? Like, again, I'm not doing this to help the team. Whatever I say comes out of my mouth is what I feel. But if you want to hear the truth, because the truth motivates you, this is the show to listen to. I always joke about the Rand Carthon thing, right? Again, because I'm a huge Titans fan. I always joke about how, if they win the Super Bowl, I don't care if Rand Carthon gets that trophy from Terry Bradshaw and says, yeah, screw you, Jared Stillman, and I'll be cheering with everybody else in the stadium because my football team will have won a championship. I don't care. But when it comes to, being in somebody's head and everything else, I mean, if you've got somebody that wants to put down the naysayers, I'll naysay. I'll do it. I got no problem with that. And again, I'll say this with Calvin Ridley, the pay what you owe, that was the whole Kyle Turris thing. And I promise you, Kyle Turris probably didn't take kind to that. But guess what? Truth hurts. And so when you're getting paid $25 million a season, the expectation is that you're going to put that ball in the end zone. And so when it comes to Calvin Ridley, you're going to pay what you owe. And if you don't, you will hear about it every day. And I hope that motivates you to go out there and continue to pay back what you owe.
Just like Kyle Turris.
Unlike Kyle Turris, who never paid what he owed. But we will give it to Calvin Ridley to pay what he owes. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Somebody texted in and said, have I missed your concession yet, or is it coming? I totally forgot about this. I promised yesterday on Twitter, Ian, that I have a concession to make to Titans Twitter. It's something I don't want to do, but it is something that I am willing to do. And we will do that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Hey, tune into 1025-1063 The Game for updates of the SEC men's basketball tournament this week, presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook, Toyota, and Guinness. I am convinced after talking to you that right tackle is not a need for the Titans. If we were the Titans and we were talking about this, would we look at right tackle as a need, or would we say, okay, let's go with Petit Frere or let's go with Radens and go from there?
It's not a desperate need, not anymore if they get Joe Alt or somebody like that at left tackle. Keep in mind, they could draft a right tackle. I mean, J.C. Latham, the right tackle out of Alabama, is moving up the draft boards. And a lot of people have him mocked to the Chargers just above the Titans. And even though he's a right tackle, they may end up taking him anyhow and solidify that position and get some chewing gum and MacGyvering to fix left tackle for a while. But right tackle to me is not a desperate position. To me, defensive line is more of a desperate position right now because, they're going to need some young guys to roll in the rotation, or else that defense is just going to get exhausted by the fourth quarter and the offense is going to be in desperate throwing mode all the time.
There you go. That was Trevor on our show earlier this week. And I know I'm worried about right tackle, and I don't need to tell the right tackle story, but I have a concession to make to Titans Twitter. And here it is. Because what happens this time of the year is a lot of you guys, and I think Twitter has some of the most lunatic fans out there, some of the most unreasonable fans. I think that's probably the right way to say this. Unreasonable. I don't mean to be rude, but we're just being truth here. Just telling how it is. And what happens is you guys try to take dented cans and try to convince yourself that there are no dents. And yet, as we know, there's only 4 reasons why somebody gets to free agency. Number 1 is because they're not a good player. Number 2 is because they're a bad guy. Number 3 is because they're too much money. Number 4 is because they're injured. So, of all the tackles out there, Tyron Smith is by far the best player who is available. And Titan fans have tried to talk themselves into Tyron Smith because Tyron Smith has been so injured with the Cowboys over the years that there's just not any way any team out there could give him 10, 15 million, which when he's playing his best, that's probably his value. He is a massive injury risk. He has not played a full season since 2015. He played 13 games last year, but only 4 games the year before that, and 11 games the year before that. But he was a second-team All-Pro last year. And Titan fans on Twitter have said, Jared, what about Tyron Smith? What about a low-risk $1 million deal for not $1 million, low-risk 1-year deal for Tyron Smith? What about it, Jared? And I have shot it down all week. And the reason I've shot it down is because I think investing in perpetually injured players to fill a void in your lineup is stupid. Because what you do is you give $7 million or whatever it is to Tyron Smith, and you say, okay, Tyron Smith is a right tackle. And now we're going into the season and we're planning on Tyron Smith at right tackle. And then by week 3, when he's inevitably hurt, now who's going to play right tackle? You don't know. I don't know. So I have just, I don't like that. But I'll accept a 1-year deal for Tyron Smith for $7 million and not a penny more. 1 year, $7 million, and then we can give him incentives, playtime incentives, that can make him whole. Because if Tyron Smith plays 17 games, I don't have a problem paying him $20 million. But it's not likely he's going to play 17 games. So I'll do $7 million because this to me is almost like a plea bargain here. Because I am convinced the Titans think that their right tackle is on the roster, and I hate that. Because I don't think Dylan Radens can play right tackle consistently, and I think Petit Frere stinks. And I think it's going to ultimately end up being Radens, which you know I hate. You know I hate. But I just think it's reality. So, as far as the Titans are concerned, Titans Twitter, that's my concession. You can have Tyron Smith, put him in the lineup. I wouldn't do it. But you can do it, and if you do it, I mean, again, I'd rather take the risk of Tyron Smith, who never plays a full season, than just assuming that Nicholas Petit Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
that PT can play right tackle for this team. I am so down on I think he's terrible. I am so down on PT. I think he is little bit better version of Andre Dillard. And that is where I'm getting my $7 million from, because today the Titans released Andre Dillard. And so by releasing Andre Dillard, they saved $7 million. It was supposed to be $10 million, but $3 million of it was guaranteed. So Andre Dillard gets $3 million to go away, and that opens up $7 million, and I'll give that $7 million to Tyron Smith so that he can play 6 games, be injured, and then you guys can get mad at Radens and PT when they end up in the lineup, because it feels to me like it's inevitable that Radens or PT is going to be in the lineup anyway. So that's the concession I'm willing to make. You want to sign Tyron Smith? Go ahead. 615-737-1025 here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Texter says, didn't Trevor say that he expects them to sign Chris Hubbard? Because he does have experience with Bill Callahan in Cleveland. So I heard PK say that the injury that injured Chris Hubbard, I guess it was a pec or a tricep or whatever.
I think that sounds right.
Something like that, that apparently that is expected to be an issue for him into the offseason. So, no thank you. Plus, like, Hubbard is a Scarbini. Like, that's what I'm talking about. If I'm going to take an injury risk on somebody, it ain't going to be Chris Hubbard. It's going to be Tyron Smith, who's actually a good player. I mean, Hubbard was fine last year. The reason you guys like Hubbard is because he wasn't as bad as everybody else. But if you had had decent players, you would have hated Hubbard. It was just, again, he wasn't as bad as everybody else. And that's it. And I can live with that. Taylor says, if you talked about defensive tackle today, I am worried that the Titans are going to use pick 38 on a defensive tackle instead of taking a wide receiver. Well, they got to get a defensive tackle somehow. I mean, they don't have any defensive linemen. They have Simmons and nobody. And so I don't know what their plan is. And again, when it comes to this administration, they don't get the benefit of the doubt with me. I know with you guys think that they can do no wrong. But they don't with me, and defensive line's pretty important. Just like right tackle is pretty important. So if they got to use that 38th pick in order to get that big boy out of Texas, I don't have a problem with that. But they got to do something on the defensive line. And I went and looked over the remaining free agents today and, like, the positions of need, and it is light on the defensive line. I mean, the guy who would fit is Tier Tart, but who knows what Rand Carthon thinks of him after Vrabel tried to convince everybody that his teammates hated him. 615-737-1025. Chad Withrow joins us from Outkick. Again, we are live here at Pinewood Social out on Peabody Street. And again, in the next hour, we will be giving away tickets for tomorrow's SEC semifinal. So be excited about that. Fireball Whiskey, it goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There is no better way to ignite the night. There is no better way to enjoy your weekend than to do it with ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. That's right. Fireball Whiskey goes down so smooth, and it tastes so great. And I love Fireball, and it is the weekend, and I love celebrating. And the way I'm going to do it is with Fireball Whiskey. That's right. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Today on this Fireball Hot Take Friday, we are live out here at Pinewood Social. That's right. Located at 33 Peabody Street in Nashville for Pinewood Madness Patio SEC Watch Party, presented by Guinness. Worth the wait. And you can come on out and showcase your arcade skills and win fantastic prizes, including this hour. I have this box right in front of me, and at some point this hour, we will pick a name out of the box, and the name that we pick out will be going to tomorrow's SEC semifinal. You still have time to register. You still have time to pop in here. You still have time. Again, we're going to give those tickets away. We'll do that drawing later this hour. And, of course, they've got great game day bites and a complimentary shuttle to and from Bridgestone Arena today and tomorrow with any purchase out here again at Pinewood Social. So I will say this. I know that in a lot of cases, a loss like the Tennessee basketball Volunteers had today is something that would just make fans sick. And if you are a fan that has the full strip of tickets for the SEC tournament, I'm sure it makes you sick. But I actually think it was a good thing. I think it was a good thing that they lost today. I think you will see a motivated and focused team next weekend for the NCAA tournament. Chad Withrow joins us now from Outkick, as he always does. Chad, I assume that you were in attendance at Bridgestone Arena today for that debacle from the Vols. I actually think it is a good thing. How are you handling it?
You know, I don't know that it's a good thing. And I'll give you credit, Jared, because you asked me last week if they should lose. You thought that maybe they should go ahead and lose early in the SEC tournament. It would be a good thing. So I was ready to respond if you reversed from that today, but you did not. So kudos to you for staying consistent on that. I don't know that it's good. I think, let me put it this way, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It was such an out-of-character performance for this team, and I know everybody's going to immediately make the connection to Rick Barnes and March past and all the problems he's had in the NCAA tournament and all of that. But I think if I'm Rick Barnes and he knows this team way better than I do, I think my approach is, look, that's not us. That was terrible. We weren't fully ready to go. It was not a good effort. No one could hit a shot. You let the offense affect your defense and completely flush that game. Don't watch the tape and come back in ready to start a new season and know that that's not them. Because here is my sneaking suspicion, Jared, about this Tennessee team. Even though they are a top 25 national offensive efficiency team, unlike last year's team that was number one overall in defense and somewhere in the 80s offensively, this team, I think, is third best in defensive efficiency and top 25 in offensive efficiency. I still feel like they can go through stretches where they are psychologically damaged on offense. And I saw that today. They rely heavily on the three when they start to miss shots. They compound that by taking way too many threes. It does throw their defense out of whack at times because they get in their own head offensively. So I think Rick Barnes needs to avoid that. You can't have any bleed-over effect from this game to the NCAA tournament. And this team should be that way. They haven't played many bad games in a row this year. So you got to get them back to having that offensive swagger, which they showed a lot this year, and not really thinking about this game. Because I was in the building for it, and it was bad. I mean, there wasn't a moment in that game where I thought Tennessee was going to win or I thought they were okay. It was 9-4 at the first media timeout, and it was pretty clear that those big boys from Mississippi State were going to go to work down low. And Jonas Adu, who had a terrible game the first go-around against them, and Tobe Awaka the same way, it was going to happen again, and Tennessee was not going to win that game. So credit to Mississippi State. They've got Tennessee's number this year. It's a bad matchup for the Vols. But I do think if they handle it the right way, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I'm not going to go as far as to say that it's a good thing. I will say, though, Tennessee, the only time they've been to an elite 2010, they lost in the SEC tournament by 30 to Kentucky that year, and they only scored 45 points, and then went on their best ever NCAA tournament run. So I guess that's to say that one performance doesn't have to dictate the next.
Well, one thing that I think, I guess, bothers me a little bit with Tennessee is I'm actually a little bit more bothered by the Kentucky game on Saturday at home than I was necessarily by this one. Again, I think they just didn't, quite frankly, they just didn't show up today. Whereas in that Kentucky game, I think they gave Kentucky their best shot. They didn't play great, but, I mean, they were locked in for the entire game. And I think that Reed Shepherd just outplayed them. And that one concerned me more than this one today. Do you take anything away from that Kentucky loss on Saturday that maybe you didn't see or you did see today?
Well, I think I take something away from both games, and there is a common denominator in both of them, and I'll get to that. The Kentucky loss doesn't bother me, first because I think Kentucky's really, really good, especially on offense. And I think Reed Shepherd is a once-in-20-year type shooter from three. I mean, he's 53% of the season, and he got hot in that game, and the whole Kentucky team was hot. So, and I know how good they are and how talented they are, but especially on offense, that doesn't bother me. I thought they came out emotional in that game because of senior day. But here's the common denominator that does bother me about this team. Santiago Vescovi and Josiah Jordan-James have to be able to make a wide-open three at some point. Because if not, why are they playing? And I like those guys and what they've done for the program as well as anyone. But when I can tell you that if either one of those guys missed their first three in the game, that they're done, they're probably going to combine to go 1 for 11, that's a problem. And that's what I'm talking about, this fragile psyche when it comes to shooting the basketball. Vescovi is a smart defender. He plays hard. He makes some good decisions at times. But, Jared, if he's not going to be able to knock down a wide-open three at some point, I don't know why you're playing him over someone even like Freddie DeLeon, the freshman who can score and hasn't really gotten a chance this year. That's what worries me about this team in the NCAA tournament. I think Dalton Knecht's going to score. I'm not too worried about today. I thought the officiating allowed the game to be very physical, and he wasn't getting some calls that he normally would probably get, and that's fine. But he's going to be okay.
But they do call it tight. You know that they call it. They let him play in the NCAA tournament too.
Yeah. And look, he's got to – whatever Mississippi State was able to do to get to the line when they drove the basket to the basket, he needs to be able to do that too. And maybe not – he may need to have the mentality of I'm going to go in to get fouled as opposed to some of these flailing shots. And he hit a couple of today that he's really good at when he drives the goal. But I'm more concerned about Vescovi and Josiah Jordan-James and their inability to do anything on offense when things aren't going well because, I mean, the book is out, right? They're going to run and jump. They're going to trap. They're going to get Connect to give it up as quick as possible. And they're going to see some jump defenses in the NCAA tournament. They're going to start with a 15 seed, I'm guessing, as a 2 seed. And that 15 seed is going to throw a jump defense at him. And Tennessee should be able to find a wide-open three-point shooter or be able to do something down low. And that's what concerns me about this team. I think Jonas Ada is going to be fine if he's not playing some big wide-body big like Tolu Smith and the other guy from Mississippi State today. But I really need to see something more out of Vescovi and James. They cannot just be in there to simply work the ball around the perimeter and never hit a shot.
I subscribe to the idea, Chad Withrow's with us, that nobody gets in trouble for something they haven't done. But if this team, with the white Michael Jordan, Dalton Knecht, if this team gets upset on the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, what will that say about Rick Barnes and the feelings that Vols fans have towards Rick Barnes?
Yeah, it'll be, if not now, then never, right? I mean, I think it'll just be arms thrown up in the air. This guy's never going to get lucky and go on an NCAA tournament run, and he is what he is in March. I mean, I really think that's going to be the mentality of Tennessee fans. Now, I also don't think Tennessee fans are stupid enough to want him gone, having just won the SEC regular season title. They realize most of basketball season's pretty good, and this guy is consistently in the NCAA tournament, and there's a lot of programs that want to get to a tournament that would love to be there. But, I mean, honestly, with this group and a guy who's contending for the Naismith Player of the Year on the roster and how different they are because of Connect, if he loses in the first round, Tennessee fans will rightfully be asking the question, if not now, then ever will it happen for Rick Barnes? And I think we've probably seen the answer to that at that point with this team. And, look, Tennessee fans are really hopeful that this is a group that can at least get them past the Sweet 16. I really think it's kind of Elite 8 or bust for this group, and certainly if they got to the program's first ever Final Four, that would be huge. But it's a team that needs to go prove it in March, and that's not something they've done a great job of under Rick Barnes.
Chad Withrow is with us from Outkick. Coming up next, it's the hot seat, and we got a lot to get to after everything that went down this week, and we'll do that coming up next. First, though, tell you about FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app, and FanDuel is putting the ball in your court for the rest of the NBA season. Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Bet on the NBA with a wide range of bet types like quick bets, live same-game parlays, player props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/JGM and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Stillman and Company live out at Pinewood Social again with our friends at Guinness. You still have a little bit of time because later this hour we'll be giving away those tickets for tomorrow's SEC semifinal. Chad Withrow is with us from Outkick. And by the way, all of our updates on the SEC men's basketball tournament this week are presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook, Toyota, and by Guinness. Chad, do you have a thought or do you want to go right to the hot seat?
I am ready to go right to the hot seat, Jared.
Okay, number one. Has Ran Carthon cooked enough this week for your approval?
I think they've done a good job. I'm not going to say I approve or disapprove overall of Rand Carthon's job until I see some results on the field and I see him have a really good draft. So, that's one half of it sort of down right now. Then we got the draft to look forward to. But overall, I think he's done a good job. I like that they went out and got Calvin Ridley, regardless of what people think about the money with Calvin Ridley, because now they can go and address offensive tackle in the draft. I don't think there's any question about receiver or tackle. I think they got to go tackle with that first pick in the draft, and they can get a very good one because you went out and got the receiver in free agency. So that's good. I like getting Cushenberry at center. He's probably the best available center on the market. So overall, I would give it a solid B+ so far for Rand Carthon. Now let's see how he complements it with this draft class.
Number 2, will we remember the Calvin Ridley contract well?
Yes. I think Calvin Ridley is still really good and going to help this team. He's certainly going to help Will Levis. So if I had to guess right now, I think so. Everyone is immediately going to, well, why didn't you just sign A.J. Brown? Well, that was a previous regime, and John Robinson was done with A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown was a problem. He had an attitude. He wanted out. A.J. Brown, I think, is a problem right now in Philly also with Jalen Hurts. Is the Philly management or is Howie Roseman going to handle it the same way in Philly because he's a little bit, doesn't like everything going on with the offense at all times or may be a problem? We'll see how he handles it. I doubt he trades him away. And John Robinson is just different that way. So would I prefer to still have A.J. Brown? Yes. But did they need a big-time receiver? Yeah. Did they overpay for him? Certainly. But you got to overpay for good players in NFL free agency, and that's what they did.
So I actually, to your point about the AJ thing, I'm like, that would, to me, I can say the same thing about the Chicago Bears drafting Caleb Williams. Like, they could have drafted C.J. Stroud last year, but they traded that pick. And those are the same guys that are doing it. These are different guys, but I guess that's a different discussion for a different day. Number 3, who's a better fit for the Titans, Tony Pollard or Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say a guy that I've never seen play for the Titans is a better fit than one of the all-time legends for the franchise. Now, what the Titans want to do moving forward versus what they've done in the past, that may be a better fit for Tony Pollard and his skill set and a guy who is going to be a better receiver out of the backfield than what we saw from Derrick Henry. That may end up being the case, but I can't say that, Tony Pollard is a better fit for the Titans as opposed to a guy who we saw here do great things. It's going to be a Hall of Fame. So give me Derrick Henry on that one.
So I put together, my free agency board, and I actually had Pollard ahead of Henry just because of the age and the fact that Pollard is a more dynamic back than Henry. But I think it's close, and I love Derrick Henry. Okay. What are your thoughts on Mason Rudolph as a backup quarterback if he has to play? Like it, hate it, indifferent?
I like it. I like it for this. I mean, well, who would you want as a backup quarterback?
I wanted Joe Flacco.
Okay. I would rather have Joe Flacco. I mean, if you're going to give me an either or, I just look around the league and look at backup quarterback situations, and Mason Rudolph was not terrible a year ago when Pittsburgh was going to the playoffs. Now, he's not a starter in the league, and if you're looking for a guy who could be a good starter in the league as a backup, you're going to be hard-pressed to find that guy unless it's a developmental rookie that you're developing to eventually be your starter. But of the available backup quarterbacks in the NFL, I think the Titans could do a lot worse. I mean, I look at him as a top-half backup.
Oh, no. He's not Tyrod Taylor. He's not Flacco. He's not Tannehill, Russell Wilson. Like, those guys are kind of what I consider.
Look, I said top half. If he's 16th, he's top half. I don't think there are 17 or 18 guys better than him as backup quarterbacks in the NFL. Would you rather have him or Marcus Mariota?
I think I'd rather have Mariota.
I'd rather have Mason Rudolph.
I mean, Rudolph's been third string pretty much all his life.
It's hard for me to get, do backflips over the signing of Mason Rudolph. But if you line up all of the stiffs who have been backup quarterbacks in the NFL over the last 4 or 5 years, I think he compares pretty favorably to a lot of those guys. Is he a great backup quarterback? No. I don't think he's going to come in and win a bunch of games for you. But can he be okay? Can he be serviceable and not lose the game for you? Yeah. And when I think of those guys, I think squarely in the middle of the pack. There's about 4 or 5 guys that could maybe come in and keep a good team rolling and get you into the playoffs. And outside of that, there's a bunch of dudes that you're hoping they just don't lose it for you. I think Mason Rudolph falls in that camp of you hope he just doesn't lose it for you.
Okay, number 4. Today, the Titans released Andre Dillard. Is Andre Dillard the worst free agent signing in Titans history? And if not, who is?
Oh, man. Carl Pickens was a free agent signing, right?
He was.
I'm trying to go back to notable, famous guys the Titans brought in that didn't do anything. David
Vic
Gibbons.
Beasley?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Look, he's right up there. Like, there is a Mount Rushmore of bad Titans free agency signings. David Gibbons comes to mind. Carl Pickens. I'm thinking a lot about receiver right now. You mentioned it with Beasley, which is a great one. I would say Andre Dillard is right there. I mean, that guy was a human turnstile at tackle throughout the year. So he is definitely close to the top of the list. Is he the best? I'd give the nod to Vic Beasley as the worst of all time. And I'm going to say Dillard is somewhere in the Carl Pickens category of worst signings of all time.
Mike Vrabel today was hired as a coaching and personnel consultant for the Cleveland Browns. Is that going to be his only job with the Cleveland Browns?
I think it is, because I think he's going to get another job somewhere else a year from now. Maybe not with the Browns. Here's what I found interesting about this. He's basically doing what Jim Schwartz did with the Titans, right? My understanding, I know he's going to help with like administrative things for the coaching staff and be a sounding board for Kevin Stefanski. But Jim Schwartz was sort of a sounding board for Shane Bowen as defensive coordinator, if I'm correct, and was a behind-the-scenes guy, but also did a lot with that defense and really helped. So it's almost like Mike Vrabel returning the favor to Jim Schwartz defensively, but he's also going to be working with the head coach. I don't think this is anything more than a one-season stop for Mike Vrabel, and he's going to move on and get a job somewhere else. That would be my guess. But, hey, I was surprised he didn't get a job this cycle.
So I think that he was brought in by Jimmy Haslam, and I think he is, if it doesn't work with Stefanski, I think he is Stefanski's replacement. And I think the reason why is because Watson sucked so bad with Vrabel, or with, when he came back, and Vrabel and he know each other from Houston, and I think that he is the eventual successor. Like, he's there to put Stefanski on notice.
Yeah, you could be right. But Kevin Stefanski, I mean, he's a guy who was in consideration for NFL Coach of the Year with what he was able to do with Joe Flacco. Now, to your point, you think Deshaun Watson is washed at this point in his career. You may be right. And if that's the case, maybe Stefanski is done in Cleveland. They have to go with someone else, and it could be Vrabel. Does make some sense. So
I think you brought up a great point. I don't know if it was last week or the week before that like the emotional, the shame element of that, the investigation and everything else on Deshaun Watson it ruined him. At least I think it probably did a little bit. Okay, who should be the next basketball coach at Vanderbilt?
2 words for you, and he's a local boy. Will Wade.
They're not going to do
that. Next coach at Vandy. They should do that. Why would they not do that?
Because he's a cheater, and Vanderbilt thinks they're above that. They'd rather lose than cheat.
Listen, what Will Wade did with his strong-ass offer at LSU is what is acceptable now in college sports. Will Wade would win at Vanderbilt. I firmly believe this. He will win and win big at Vandy. I would go with Will Wade. I know Chris Mack is likely to get some consideration. Wouldn't mind that one either. But if I were going to hire someone and I was going to try to blaze a different path at Vanderbilt, and they need to blaze a different path in basketball because it's been bad for a while now, I'm going Will Wade. Hire the FRA kid.
Again, I don't think Vandy's going to hire a cheater. Now, that being said, I have my own thoughts on Chris Mack. I think that he'd be better suited at Vanderbilt than he would be at a big school. Okay. What do you make of the new 14-team college football playoff?
I think the fact that ACC and Big 12 agreed to take a lesser percentage of the revenue cemented the future of college football, where they're not going to have any decision in what comes next. The SEC and the Big Ten will decide what ACC schools continue to get to play major college football and who doesn't. Same goes for the Big 12. I think it was necessary for them to make the money they wanted, and they know it. But that written admission that they are less than the SEC and the Big Ten, it is now on paper. We don't deserve as much money as these two behemoths because they're better leagues and they bring in more revenue and their programs matter more. The fact that they put that in writing with this agreement, it seals the deal. It's over for college football as we know it. It's just a matter of time before the SEC and Big Ten get together and they decide what 8 to 10 teams get to keep playing, and they're going to take those teams and have a 40 to 50 team super conference that will be the new version of what we know now as college football and a national champion. And the Big 12 and ACC are eventually done as football conferences.
It's going to be the AFC and the NFC. That is the hot seat with Chad Withrow from Outkick. Chad, great stuff as always. We appreciate you. Enjoy the wide open weekend that you now have with Tennessee not playing in the SEC basketball tournament.
I will be resting up and getting ready for next week and the hot seat next Friday. Have a great weekend, Jared. Talk to you soon.
Yep, Chad Withrow joining us as always. It's time to give away these tickets. That's right, and of course we'll get to your phones as we always do on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, we are live out here at Pinewood Social, where once again Pinewood Madness with our friends at Guinness going on all weekend, and the shuttle to and from Pinewood Social to Bridgestone Arena for the SEC basketball tournament. Tune in to 102.5, 106.3 the game today as Vanderbilt takes on Auburn at Hawkins Field. Pregame is in 10 minutes, and first pitch is at 6 o'clock. Coverage also available on the 102.5 the game and the 102.5, 106.3 the game app and theGameNashville.com. All right, I promised I would do this, and so I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to shake up this box right here that's got a pair of tickets for tomorrow's SEC semifinals, in which the Vols will not be playing in. And our winner is, on the air, Kyle Green. Congratulations, Kyle. And Kyle's actually here. Kyle, congratulations. Enjoy the semifinal tomorrow. Kyle's a Kentucky fan, so at least he's still got a shot of his team playing in it, unlike the Tennessee fans. And I do wonder, like, what the makeup, as far as tickets purchased, I do wonder what the makeup is as far as Tennessee fans that thought that they were going to be here the whole weekend, that 5 minutes into their game tonight or this afternoon realized that they would not be there. And I'm going to guess probably like 30-something%. All right, let's get to your phones. As promised, phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Dustin in Nashville says, I think the Titans punted on backup quarterback because it's almost their way of saying if Will Levis is hurt, we're better off with better draft picks. If the season goal is to evaluate Levis, they'll need better draft position if he gets hurt and fails. Now, on one hand, I think that's ridiculous because I think that everybody should always try to win in the NFL, and if not, you end up getting fired, right? Like everybody was talking about, was this a rebuilding year for the Titans? And then all of a sudden, Mike Vrabel got fired at the end of it. And if it was a rebuilding year and they won 7 games, that's actually not a bad job. So I don't think it works in the NFL where you throw games and say, oh, well, we were rebuilding, so it's okay. I think the Titans just, it's either one of two things. Either they actually think that Mason Rudolph is good, which might be the case, I don't know. Either they think he's good or they just think, well, if the backup quarterback has to get in there, we're screwed. And I don't like that because that's the approach that they've taken the last 2 years, and they've had to play backup quarterbacks. And I don't like them playing backup quarterbacks that aren't good when I've seen other backup quarterbacks go in there and win games for their teams. Most recently, Joe Flacco was winning games. Gardner Minshew last year won games. Like that kind of quarterback. You know, even if it's Jacoby Brissett, and I don't even like Jacoby Brissett, but even if it's that kind of player, that I'm okay with. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Trent says Mason Rudolph sucks. I agree, and apparently I didn't look at the text line this morning when I went on the morning show. Ian, I went on with Robbie and Joe today.
I heard.
And like Joe was like, the text line is clowning you over your Mason Rudolph.
Well, one thing I will say, you know, we do talk about this, and Robbie brought that up, the record of Rudolph as a starting quarterback. And we have said on this show that wins is a quarterback stat. And so, you know, we can take away, oh, he was with the Steelers and there, whatever, but we count wins as a quarterback stat, and he has a decent winning percentage as a starting quarterback.
But he got benched when Big Ben got hurt in 2019. They made him the quarterback.
We can't pick and choose.
They won games, and they still benched him.
What, it's a quarterback stat, wins quarterback stat or not?
But win's not the only important quarterback stat.
That's true.
Like, it's a quarterback stat, but it's not the only one, right? Like, Justin Herbert doesn't magically suck because Justin Herbert's teams never win games. Like, I told you that the analytic guys will say that Herbert is as good as Joe Burrow. And I'm like, that's just not true because Herbert wins. Like, I'm just saying, like, Burrow wins, Herbert doesn't. So winning matters a little bit, but it doesn't mean everything. And if you win and get benched, that means you really suck. One texter says, if the Titans have the right draft pick next year, they will be drafting a quarterback. If Levis doesn't have a good season, that is just the nature of the league. I have told you, in all these potential trades, I have never, ever said that the Titans should be allowed to deal their first-round draft choice next season because that is the Will Levis insurance. If Levis is bad, then that pick will be good because you will stink, and then you will be able to draft a quarterback. And that I am here for. So again, I mean, I wouldn't trade it. Now, I did see that Minnesota decided to move up those picks earlier today, and I do think Minnesota could be on the move. And if they want a quarterback and they're trying to get into the J.J. McCarthy sweepstakes, I do think that that might be a possibility for them right here coming down the pipe. All right, that's going to do it for us. Great show out here today. Vandy Baseball is coming up next. I want to thank our friends out here at Pinewood Social. They took fantastic care of us all day. We are on our way to Bridgestone Arena. They got the shuttles that will be running all throughout the today and tomorrow, all throughout taking people to Bridgestone Arena for the SEC men's basketball tournament. And when we're on the air on Monday, we'll probably have more free agent signings. We'll probably have more trades, and there'll probably be 6 teams with new quarterbacks or whatever it may be. Who knows? But we will have our NCAA tournament bracket. Stillman and Company. We'll see you all Monday at 2.